Chapter 676. At this moment outside the inn, there were many silhouettes gathered. Their gazes were fixed on the constellation in the sky as their hearts pounded wildly. That terrifying constellation enveloped a radius of 10 miles, they couldn't even see Qin Wentian's silhouette. How powerful, is he here to kill Qin Wentian? The return of the legendary character of Qin Wentian, shook the entire country. Who would have thought that he would have such a terrifying opponent outside? That person seems to be the Green Cloud Sovereign. Even the Green Cloud Sovereign can only be a spectator. A few days ago, he came to Chu saying that he wanted to meet with Qin Wentian. In that case, the Green Cloud Sovereign was the one who lured Qin Wentian here. Someone mused. The more they thought about it, the more their hearts trembled. Even the Green Cloud Sovereign of the Green Cloud Pavilion didn't dare to act against Qin Wentian. Instead, he invited an even more powerful expert to kill Qin Wentian. This legendary character of Chu, how strong was he exactly now? Would he die this time around? They stared at the Green Cloud Sovereign, only to see the black-robed Green Cloud Sovereign standing arrogantly in the air with a cold expression on his face. Qin Wentian was dead for sure. This person was someone who had been famous for thousands of years, the most dangerous person in the entire Grand Xia Empire. If he personally acted, he didn't believe that Qin Wentian wouldn't die. This time around, in order to invite him out, the various major powers had to pay a hefty price. Sovereign, why must you do this? Beside the Green Cloud Sovereign, Ling Yu's tears flowed unceasingly. She felt pain in her heart and guilt. This was especially so when she saw the situation ahead. Qin Wentian couldn't even be seen anymore. Evidently, he had fallen into an extremely dangerous situation, trapped by a gigantic net. The Green Cloud Sovereign slowly turned his gaze over only to see Ling Yu's grandfather berating, "Ling Yu, shut up. Grandpa, how can you all make use of me?" Ling Yu cried in agony. She felt heartbroken. If Qin Wentian died, she couldn't imagine the consequences. Ling Yu understood the personality of the Green Cloud Sovereign a little. After all, his methods in the Green Cloud Pavilion were very clear to her. Since he had already decided to become enemies with Qin Wentian, once he killed Qin Wentian, everyone in the entire Chu country who had a connection with Qin Wentian would definitely be silenced. The Green Cloud Sovereign wouldn't have the slightest bit of pity in his heart. He had already killed many people in the Green Cloud Pavilion, and many of those people were acquaintances of his, including his old friends, let alone the relatives of Qin Wentian. Sis Qingcheng, Mo Feng, Mou, and the entire Mo residence. The Green Cloud Sovereign wouldn't spare any of them. When she thought of this, Ling Yu was in so much pain that her entire body convulsed uncontrollably. She was so afraid that these things would happen. Ling Yu. At this moment, a voice drifted over. Ling Yu turned her gaze over, and when she saw Mo Feng, her countenance instantly turned incomparably pale. Brother-in-law, he. Mo Feng stared at the constellation in the sky as his countenance also turned pale. Was there someone stronger than the Green Cloud Sovereign who came to assassinate his brother-in-law? From afar, a silver rock soared through the air. Resplendent silvery light flashed as a raging wind swept up. The gazes of everyone turned over, they were unable to shift their eyes away. How beautiful! Who is this woman? Someone had a dumbfounded expression on his face as he stared fixedly at the beautiful silhouette on the back of the silver rock. Other than the number one beauty of Chu, who else could it be? Someone sighed. Right now, the number one beauty of Chu was simply on a different level compared to Mo Qingcheng. Mo Qingcheng should forever be the number one beauty of Chu. The instant the Green Cloud Sovereign saw Mo Qingcheng, he started. His sharp eyes flickered with a strange light, as though a hint of greed could be seen within. His heart was focused on the path of cultivation, his will was incomparably resolute. Although he was also fond of beauty, it was very rare for him to get close to women. Hence, up until now, he had always been single, without a wife or children. Now, he had already become a celestial phenomenon ascendant with extremely high achievements, a hegemon of the Green Cloud Pavilion. Naturally, he would have some thoughts in his heart, wanting to find a woman who could match up to him. However, his standards were extremely high. Ordinary women, no matter how beautiful they were, how could they be worthy of him, the Green Cloud Sovereign? But this beauty before him truly caused the heart of the Green Cloud Sovereign to waver. How beautiful! His sharp eyes flashed with a hint of greed. As long as Qin Wendian died, the entire Chu country would be his to command. The beauties of Chu would naturally be his to command as well. However, the Green Cloud Sovereign soon frowned. Because from the start to the end, Mo Qingqing didn't even glance at him, directly disregarding him. He didn't know that in Mo Qingqing's heart, he was already a dead man. Regardless of whether Qin Wendian was dead or alive, the moment the Green Cloud Sovereign hired someone to assassinate Qin Wendian, his fate was already sealed. He would die without a doubt. Also, Mo Qingqing firmly believed that nothing would happen to Qin Wendian. In the constellation, the gray-robed old man didn't reply to Qin Wendian. His body vanished once again, but the space was still filled with astral light. Countless vines once again shot towards Qin Wendian. These vines bared their fangs, resembling man-eating vines. As long as one was trapped by this constellation, if one's strength was inferior to the other party, they would definitely die. This was something Qin Wendian understood very well. Hence, if he wanted to live, he had to break apart this constellation and rush out. However, the strength of this gray-robed old man was clearly many times stronger than him. It was impossible for him to break apart this constellation. The demon's sword radiated a sword light that tore apart the void. The surroundings were filled with sword might as formless sword chi permeated every inch of space. Rumble. The demon's sword expanded, reaching a length of 1,000 meters. Qin Wendian slashed out with his palms, sacrificing his blood to the demon's sword. Instantly, the sword might grew even stronger as the humming of swords filled the air, lacerating the vines that were frenziedly attacking him. Qin Wendian didn't dare to allow the vines to get close to him. The gray-robed old man who wanted to assassinate him could appear at any moment. Closing his eyes, Qin Wendian kept the scarlet demon halberd away. His perception was pushed to the limits, probing this entire space. The sword might was everywhere, moving according to his will. Swish! The terrifying vines once again rushed over from all directions. This time around, Qin Wendian didn't slash them apart. He closed his eyes, as though he didn't see anything. A boundless divine glow radiated from his body. Qi. Qin Wendian pulled the demon's sword up into the air as the sword humming grew increasingly terrifying. Those vines were unceasingly being attacked by the sword qi, clashing against each other. Boom! The incomparably thick man-eating vines blasted towards Qin Wendian. With an intention of his will, Qin Wendian spun the demon's sword and in an instant, a storm of destruction manifested in his surroundings, slashing apart all the vines that got too close to him. Your strength isn't bad. A voice drifted out from the void, unceasingly reverberating throughout this space. I initially thought that a single strike would be sufficient to kill you. Or perhaps, I could even rely on my constellation to kill you. However, you have truly surprised me. That voice drifted out once more. However, it's impossible for there to be any mistakes in the people I want to kill. You will still die for sure. In my next attack, I will take your life. Qin Wendian remained unmoved. No matter what the other party said, his will would always be as resolute as ever. Regardless of whether the words spoken by the other party were true or false, or if the other party was simply arrogant, he couldn't lose his composure. Being able to remain calm in the face of danger was the foundation of an expert. He had already made his preparations to face any situation. As the voice drifted out, swishing sounds rang out unceasingly. The vines were still frenziedly attacking Qin Wendian, yet before they could even get close to Qin Wendian, they were already destroyed by the sword might. At this moment, in the airspace above Qin Wendian, another constellation circulated as numerous silhouettes suddenly appeared. Each of these silhouettes was clad in black robes and looked exactly the same, like a mirror image. They had the exact same appearance, the exact same expression, and the exact same aura. What kind of constellation is this? Qin Wendian opened his eyes and stared at the sky. The constellations condensed by different experts were all different. Once a constellation was formed, one would be able to sense the true intent contained within. The mysterious constellation before his eyes gave Qin Wendian a feeling that it was even more dangerous compared to the ancient vine constellation. The ancient vine constellation gave birth to ancient vines. It was an extremely powerful ability to control constellations. In that case, other than the ability to conceal one's presence, there was a high possibility that this constellation contained other powers as well. The light from the constellation cascaded downwards. At this instant, Qin Wendian saw the constellation flowing downwards, formless and formless. Those black-robed silhouettes flickered unceasingly as they appeared in different locations. Bzzz. A terrifying long spear directly pierced towards Qin Wendian. Qin Wendian waved his palms as sword whistled through the air, slashing out explosively, transforming into a tempest of destruction. However, the darkness energy contained within the long spear of the black-robed silhouette directly broke apart the tempest of destruction. The blood in Qin Wendian's body seethed as the bloodline protection appeared once more. He blasted out with both his palms, wanting to destroy the heavens and earth. But at this moment, the constellation rotated and the black-robed silhouette actually vanished. A terrifying sense of danger gushed over as a destructive might gushed out from the other side of Qin Wendian, causing Qin Wendian's entire body to turn cold. Rumble. A sword manifested as millions of sharp swords blasted out. However, the black-robed silhouette's attack was as fast as lightning, penetrating through the sword light and slamming into Qin Wendian's shoulder, directly opening up a bloody hole. After a single strike, he fled, incomparably cautious. Although the grey-robed old man's combat prowess was many times stronger compared to Qin Wendian, because he had suffered from the bloodline protection before, he was still extremely cautious when he fought. This was the main reason why he was able to survive for so long. What he was most proficient in was hunting and assassination. He would first surround and hunt before slowly killing his opponent. In the blink of an eye, the body of the grey-robed old man changed several positions. Those vines were still frenziedly coiling over, and Qin Wendian had no way to defend against them. Very swiftly, many bloody holes appeared on his body, directly penetrating through his flesh. If it wasn't for his quick reflexes, he would have already died. If this continued on, it wouldn't be long before Qin Wendian would be tortured to death. The encirclement ability of the grey-robed old man was extremely strong, but luckily, his direct attacks weren't as strong as his encirclement abilities. If not, that first strike would have already been a calamity for Qin Wendian. The 4 Yuan Fu within Qin Wendian's body started to seethe madly, circulating to every single meridian in his body. Even the sword might from the demon sword was channeled towards Qin Wendian. At this instant, Qin Wendian's body seemed to be burning as a destructive sword might gushed forth from him. In just a short instant, Qin Wendian's countenance turned pale white, as though his spirit, energy, and energy were all burning up. Although his aura was still at the heavenly dipper realm, the aura he exuded was even more terrifying compared to celestial phenomenon ascendants. What is he doing? The countenance of the grey-robed old man turned incredibly unsightly. Qin Wendian's left hand grabbed onto the demon's sword as he abruptly lifted his right hand, placing it in the air as he stared at the grey-robed old man who was preparing to launch another attack. Have you gone mad? The grey-robed old man saw how pale Qin Wendian's countenance was, yet his strength had already soared to an unprecedented level. He instantly understood what Qin Wendian wanted to do. He unleashed a terrifying technique that required self-immolation as the price, injuring himself in order to unleash an attack that surpassed his limits. Bzzz. The grey-robed old man actually turned and disappeared into his constellation. This fellow must have gone mad. He didn't even say a single word before activating such a terrifying killing technique, disregarding all consequences. Die. Qin Wendian's palms sliced through the air. In that instant, it was as though a heaven-rending sword had slashed through the skies, directly cleaving apart the constellation in half. Chapter 677. The constellation was slashed apart. Two constellations were cleaved apart at the same time, cleanly and cleanly. The familiar sky once again appeared above Qin Wentian. At the instant he slashed out with his sword, his entire aura seemed to have dissipated as his countenance turned as pale as paper. Back then, he once transformed into a great rock and unleashed the immortal vanquishing swordplay. This immortal art was different from the other immortal arts he had cultivated. It required him to burn his own self as the price to unleash the strongest attack, drawing out all of his vitality, including his life force. Qin Wentian didn't know that if it wasn't for the fact that his life force was incomparably vigorous, he wouldn't have been able to endure the repeated usage of the immortal vanquishing swordplay. However, the might of this sword strike was clear to see. His original strength was already much stronger compared to when he transformed into a great rock. Hence, it was much easier to control the power of the demon divinities in the 8 directions. The spectators only saw a beam of sword light suddenly appearing in the airspace above the sealed battlefield. This beam of sword light tore apart the sky, and after that, the constellation vanished. Their hearts pounded violently. Has the battle ended? Where did that beam of sword light come from? Did Qin Wentian die? The grey-robed old man and Qin Wentian both appeared in the air at the same time. The two of them stood there unmoving. Qin Wentian wielded the demon's sword in his left hand as sword might circulated around him. His robes were tattered and his entire body was dyed red with fresh blood. One could see how intense the battle was. The grey-robed old man quietly stood there weren't any injuries on his body. His eyes were cold to the extreme, causing people to feel fear. Brother-in-law. Mo Feng and Ling Yu mumbled, their gazes unmoving as they stared at Qin Wentian. Mo Qingqing had already stepped out and instantly appeared beside Qin Wentian. She took out a medicinal pill and directly fed it into Qin Wentian's mouth. Qin Wentian swallowed it and took out a set of white robes. Mo Qingqing received it and draped it over Qin Wentian, acting like a virtuous wife. She didn't say anything or ask anything. She could sense that right now, Qin Wentian wasn't in a good condition. It seemed that he had been suppressing his injuries. Let's go. Mo Qingqing spoke. The experts of the Mo residence all nodded as they started to retreat. The silver rock flew to Qin Wentian's feet and with a flap of its wings, it retreated. Qin Wentian already returned the demon's sword to its original position. His gaze was still fixed on the grey-robed old man ahead of him. Upon seeing the coldness in his eyes, the grey-robed old man didn't move an inch. The silvery rock whistled through the air as its silhouette gradually vanished. During this process, the Green Cloud Sovereign's countenance turned ashen, but he didn't act recklessly. At this moment, he felt a chill in his heart. Qin Wentian actually didn't die. Even with such an attack, he still failed to kill Qin Wentian. He looked at the grey-robed old man, and with a soft sound, the grey-robed old man coughed up a mouthful of blood. His face instantly turned pale, and the aura in his body fluctuated. His body trembled slightly as if he was in extreme pain. Phew. Taking a deep breath, the grey-robed elder stabilized his fluctuating aura and stared at the disappearing figure. It had failed. The assassination attempt had actually ended in failure. I won't accept your mission. The grey-robed elder stared at the Green Cloud Sovereign. Why? The battle has yet to end and Qin Wentian is already an arrow at the end of its flight. Why didn't you kill him earlier? The Green Cloud Sovereign's countenance turned incredibly unsightly when he heard the words of the grey-robed elder. An arrow at the end of its flight. Why didn't you act? The grey-robed elder stared at the grey-robed elder. This matter no longer has anything to do with me. Farewell. After speaking, he flicked his sleeves and directly departed the area, vanishing in the blink of an eye. When he was far away, the grey-robed elder coughed out a few more mouthfuls of blood as he sped downwards. He didn't kill Qin Wentian. He basically didn't have the strength to kill Qin Wentian anymore. If he continued to risk his life, it was unknown who would be the one to die. After the grey-robed elder left, the Green Cloud Sovereign felt extremely unbearable. The assassination attempt today was specially set up for Qin Wentian. Also, the person who planned this was none other than him, the Green Cloud Sovereign. He knew that Qin Wentian would definitely come because he, the Green Cloud Sovereign, was in Chu and Qin Wentian's family was also there. If Qin Wentian didn't come, Qin Wentian would die for sure. But the ending didn't turn out as he wished. Qin Wentian actually didn't die. Even the gray-robed elder failed to kill Qin Wentian. In that case, once Qin Wentian recovered, who would be the first person he would kill? It would be him, the Green Cloud Sovereign. You want me to bear the responsibility for this matter alone? Impossible. The Green Cloud Sovereign's heart turned cold as he commanded, "Bring Lingyue back." After speaking, his silhouette flickered as he sped away. This tempest instantly engulfed the entire Chu country. However, Qin Wentian, who was in the center of it, had already returned to the Mo residence. In Mo Qingqing's room, Qin Wentian lay on the ground, completely devoid of energy. He was already doing his best to control the immortal vanquishing swordplay, unleashing the sword might before he was completely drained. But even so, the instant the immortal vanquishing swordplay was activated, his essence, qi, and spirit were all sucked dry as his life force was ignited. Qingcheng, during this period of time, the Mo residence might be in danger. Qin Wentian spoke in a low voice. "Let me temporarily send you away. Since you are not in Chu, no one would dare to act recklessly. Before this, they didn't take any drastic measures because they were afraid of your revenge." Mo Qingqing sat beside Qin Wentian as she spoke in a gentle voice. Qin Wentian naturally understood this as well. This was why he was at ease when he allowed the Azure Emperor Palace to relocate. In fact, he didn't even care about the other party threatening him with his family and friends in Chu. It was because he understood that before Qin Wentian killed him, Qin Wentian, those ascendants wouldn't dare to do such a thing. Not only did Qin Wentian have family and friends, those ascendants all had children and grandchildren. Also, all of them lived in the 9 continents of Grand Xia. If they dared to touch his family and friends before killing him, Qin Wentian, how could they be so irrational? They would rather die indiscriminately. Things are different now. Qin Wentian shook his head. They have already hired people to assassinate me, shredding all pretense of cordiality. The Green Cloud Sovereign naturally knows that I will definitely kill him. In that case, he would definitely take the risk and spare no expense to kill me. Things will no longer be the same as before. If I leave, he might use some extreme methods to kill me. Hence, I cannot leave. Mo Qingqing stared at that pale countenance, yet there was still a resolute look on his face. She felt as though her heart was about to melt. She laid beside Qin Wentian, hugging Qin Wentian. She knew that what Qin Wentian said was right. In the past, before they shredded all pretense of cordiality, those ascendants wouldn't dare to offend Qin Wentian too much before Qin Wentian died. But now, things were different. They had already assassinated him, why would they still be afraid of shredding all pretense of cordiality? If Qin Wentian left, they might use Qin Wentian's family and friends to threaten him. No matter what, I will stay by your side. Mo Qingqing didn't try to persuade him any further. She naturally understood Qin Wentian's personality. Since he had already made his decision, he wouldn't change it. She would respect his decision. The wedding date isn't far away, the people from the royal sacred region should be arriving soon. If they really dare to act, Qingqing, you should tell them your identity. I believe that would be sufficient to deter them. Qin Wentian gently caressed Mo Qingqing's face as he spoke in a gentle voice, I need to rest. Emichim, I won't disturb you. I will stay by your side to accompany you. Mo Qingqing obediently replied. Everyone in the Mo residence was worried about Qin Wentian's injuries. However, Mo Qingqing and Qin Wentian didn't take a single step out of the room. Everything seemed very calm, but behind them, a terrifying tempest could erupt at any moment. Qin Chuan and Qin Ya also came to the Mo residence, wanting to know how Qin Wentian was doing. However, they didn't manage to see Qin Wentian at all. A few days later, news circulated out of the royal capital of Chu. In Grand Xia, several transcendent powers on the same level as the Green Cloud Pavilion and Misty Peak had sent people to the royal capital. Not only that, these people were the leaders of these transcendent powers, the true hegemons of Grand Xia. This news truly frightened everyone in the royal capital. These people were all characters on the same level as the Green Cloud Sovereign, or perhaps even stronger. They all came together to a small country like Chu, and it seemed that they were all here for Qin Wentian. The atmosphere in the Mo residence was incomparably tense. They didn't know what kind of tempest Qin Wentian had stirred up in the past, but when they heard that so many transcendent powers were enemies of Qin Wentian, how could they not be shocked? Not only that, right now, Qin Wentian's injuries were still unknown. The moment these people arrived, they directly occupied the royal palace of Chu. They came in a domineering manner, wanting to kill their way to the Mo residence. In the great hall of the royal palace, the emperor and his ministers were all chased away. The transcendent powers all turned their gazes to the Green Cloud Sovereign as they asked, what happened in that battle exactly? Why didn't Qin Wentian die? Why didn't the Dark Shadow Sovereign mention anything about it and refuse to continue the assassination? I have no idea, but the Dark Shadow Sovereign and Qin Wentian are definitely injured. If not, given Qin Wentian's personality, do you all think he would be able to endure it? The Green Cloud Sovereign stared at the crowd as he spoke. His injuries are not light. Why don't you directly kill your way over and kill him? If his injuries are not light, why is he still here in Chu? The Wang ancestor questioned. Qin Wentian survived the assassination attempt of the Dark Shadow Sovereign, breaking through his constellation and injuring the Dark Shadow Sovereign. Qin Wentian was simply too terrifying. Although they wanted Qin Wentian to die immediately, they didn't dare to directly kill their way over. They still had some suspicions in their hearts. Kill my way over. This matter was instigated by all of you. But now, it has become my problem. The Green Cloud Sovereign coldly laughed. Now that we're all here, the one who hired the Dark Shadow Sovereign to assassinate Qin Wentian knows very well that we have no other choice but to kill our way over and take Qin Wentian's life. If not, we can only wait for revenge. As for what we should do, I'm more clear than you all. If you all don't wish to kill me, at most I can just give up on the Green Cloud Pavilion and leave this place. I have no worries, I'm not like all of you who have children and grandchildren. You. The Wang ancestor's countenance turned cold. The Green Cloud Sovereign fearlessly stared back at him. These old foxes actually wanted to stay out of this matter. Was it possible for him to act alone? Stop arguing. Since things have already come to this, we truly have no other choice. The sure ancestor spoke. Either they kill Qin Wentian or they wait for death. Since this is the case, things are much simpler. Should we directly kill our way over now or should we threaten Qin Wentian to come over and see if he would show up or not? The Green Cloud Sovereign calmly spoke. Chapter 678. Since the ascendants of Grand Xia arrived in Chu, Fairy Qingmei and the rest naturally arrived as well. Fairy Qingmei, Old Xing, the sect leader of the Mystic Moon Hall, the old matriarch of the Mystic Moon Hall, and the Vice Palace Lord of the Azure Emperor Palace, Chu Lanjiang, a total of 5 celestial phenomenon ascendants had all arrived. When they stepped into the Mo residence, the entire Mo residence was shocked. The auras of these 5 were simply too powerful. Just by casually walking over, one could faintly sense the might of a hegemon. With a single glance, no one dared to match their gaze. The people of the Mo residence were all trembling with trepidation. Old Mo personally came out to welcome them. He had no idea who these people were. Fairy Qingmei and the rest swept their senses over. After which, they walked towards the Mo residence. Mo Qingqing's silhouette stepped out, meeting with them in midair. Fairy Qingmei contemplated Mo Qingqing for a moment before asking, "Is the sect leader still doing well?" "He's resting." Mo Qingqing spoke. "Let's go down and talk." "Right." Fairy Qingmei smiled. Staring at Imo Qingqing's demeanor, she couldn't help but be reminded of Qing. Both of them were so outstanding, no wonder Qin Wentian couldn't bear to part with them. The Mo residence was shaken once again. These 5 supreme experts were actually the subordinates of Qin Wentian. I heard that the situation in Chu is extremely unfavorable to the sect leader. The other experts should have already arrived in Chu. After sitting down in the courtyard, the Mo residents prepared a banquet for Mo Qingqing to receive them. We'll deal with the situation when it comes. Mo Qingqing replied. Why don't you bring the sect leader away? Fairy Qingmei asked. Mo Qingqing shook her head. He's afraid of implicating the others and is unwilling to leave. There's no harm in this matter, everyone should be confident. Fairy Qingmei stared at Mo Qingqing, her misty eyes gleaming with a resplendent light. After which, she smiled and nodded. Since Madam Sect Leader has said this, we naturally believe that the sect leader would be able to survive this calamity. Shall we wait here? Let's wait, they should be arriving soon. Mo Qingqing calmly spoke. Although Mo Qingqing said this, Fairy Qingmei and the rest were still extremely worried. Would they really be able to retreat unscathed? Just like what Mo Qingqing had predicted, the ascendants of Grand Xia directly killed their way to the Mo residence. Since they had already hired the Dark Shadow Sovereign to assassinate Qin Wentian, both sides had already formed a blood feud. In that case, they could only kill Qin Wentian in a single blow. They no longer had a path of retreat. Even before they descended, a terrifying might swept through the entire Mo residence, causing the entire place to tremble. Mo Qingqing led Fairy Qingmei and the others in the air, and from afar, they could already see the experts descending. Over 10 celestial phenomenon ascendants gathered together. This was the strongest force in Grand Xia right now. A destructive might enveloped every corner of the Mo residence, causing everyone to tremble. They inclined their heads and stared at the silhouettes of the various hegemons in the air as the shock in their hearts grew to the extreme. This time, was the Mo residence going to be finished? As expected, you guys have arrived. The eyes of the ascendants flickered with coldness when they saw Fairy Qingmei and the others. As expected, Qin Wentian was still in the Mo residence, recuperating from his injuries. What do you guys want by coming to my residence? Mo Qingqing stared at them as she asked. Your residence? The Green Cloud Sovereign seemed to have heard something ridiculous. Could it be that Mo Qingqing still didn't know what would happen? Mo Qingqing, Qin Wentian has slaughtered indiscriminately in Grand Xia. Today, we of Grand Xia have to get rid of this poisonous tumor. Everyone in the Mo residence is simply courting death by associating with him. The sure ancestor coldly spoke. I advise you all to scram. Today, only one person from the Mo residence died. I dare to guarantee that in the future, blood will flow like rivers in Grand Xia. All of your clans or sects will be razed to flat ground. Mo Qingqing's voice was ice cold. Her eyes flickered with a coldness that came from the depths of her heart, causing the hearts of those who heard it to tremble. Don't know what you're talking about. Are you trying to scare us? The Wang ancestor coldly laughed. I'm scaring you all. Mo Qingqing stared at the Wang ancestor. Grand Xia is known by the royal sacred region as a place of desolation. No one is willing to step foot in there, and any random power in the royal sacred region can destroy the entire Grand Xia. Qin Wentian wants to unify Grand Xia, but because Grand Xia is too weak, so weak that it's pitiful. In the future, as long as there's a power that wishes to do so, they would be able to sweep through Grand Xia. Me and Qin Wentian returned from the royal sacred region for the sake of our grand wedding, hence we didn't bring any experts from our sects with us. If not, how could you all dare to be so arrogant here? Mo Qingqing stared at the Wang ancestor. If not, why do you all think that the once arrogant elder of the royal sacred sect, Junyu, didn't appear when the Pale Emperor Hall was destroyed? Also, I wonder if anyone from the Hua clan came here. Right now, Hua Taishu has already become a disciple of the core faction of the royal sacred sect. If you all are still limited to a mere Grand Xia, that would truly be too lamentable. The countenance of the Hua ancestor stiffened. Hua Taishu had become a disciple of the core faction. He didn't know what the core faction meant, but from Mo Qingqing's tone, it seemed that they were extremely powerful. Is what you said true? The Hua ancestor asked. Hua Taishu and Qin Wendian entered the immortal martial realm together. Qin Wendian became the top ranker of the immortal martial realm, while Hua Taishu and another heaven chosen were ranked second. They received an invitation from the core faction of the Royal Sacred Sect, and their statuses are much higher compared to Junyu. Whether you believe me or not, I'll only say this much today. If you all leave, I'll give each of you an invitation to attend my wedding with Qin Wendian and everything will be made clear. As for what you all are worried about, the unification of Grand Xia is a must, but Wendian wouldn't want to annihilate all of you. However, since you all came here again today, let me warn you one last time. If you all don't retreat today, there will be no more room for negotiation. Even if you kill me and Qin Wendian, the entire Grand Xia will be buried together with us. Each of Mo Qingqing's words were extremely sharp. The hegemons of Grand Xia were all stunned by her words. They were speechless for a long time, as though they were pondering over Mo Qingqing's words. Just based on Mo Qingqing's demeanor alone, she had already undergone a complete transformation in the Royal Sacred Region. Hua Taishu had already become a core disciple of the Royal Sacred Sect, but what about her and Qin Wendian? Was there even a need to say more? When the people of the Mo residence heard Mo Qingqing's words, they faintly understood how domineering Qin Wendian and Mo Qingqing were outside. Qin Wendian wanted to unify the entire Grand Xia. Don't be bewitched by her words. The reason why she said this today is because she knows she is weak. Don't forget how domineering Qin Wendian was earlier. If we don't seize this opportunity to kill Qin Wendian, there won't be a second chance. The Wang ancestor coldly spoke. All of them were old monsters that had lived for countless years. They wouldn't easily trust others, let alone be frightened. Right now, we are the ones with the initiative. But if we wait for Qin Wendian to recover, things might change. The Green Cloud Sovereign also coldly spoke. The words of the two of them instantly extinguished the thoughts in the hearts of the hegemons. Indeed, although Mo Qingqing's words caused them to be shocked, it was also because Mo Qingqing knew that they were at a disadvantage now. Today was the best opportunity to kill Qin Wendian. Everyone, why are you all still not coming out? At this moment, the Shi ancestor coldly spoke. The others weren't surprised, they all knew that there were still people hiding in the shadows. And indeed, as the sound of his voice faded, several more people appeared. Jiang Clan, Thousand Ju Alliance, are you all preparing to join our alliance? The Wang ancestors stared at the newcomers. There were 4 among them, they were celestial phenomenon ascendants from the Jiang Clan and Thousand Ju Alliance. Right now, this tiny Chu country would decide the future of Grand Xia. The gazes of Grand Xia were all focused here. In the Ouyang aristocrat clan, the alliance has already been formed. Which side do the two of you from the Jiang clan intend to stand on? Fairy Qingmei asked. This was the wedding between Ouyang Guangxing and Jiang Ting. Logically speaking, the Jiang clan should stand on their side. However, the hearts of humans were hard to predict. Who knew what the two from the Jiang clan were thinking now? Especially now, they weren't in an advantageous position. The two ascendants from the Jiang clan had complicated thoughts in their hearts. Back then, although Qin Wendian didn't bother with them and said on the surface that they could be friends, they didn't have a deep relationship. They understood that Qin Wendian still had some grudges against the Jiang clan. After all, back then, their Jiang clan had always stood on the side of the Ouyang ancestor. If they wanted to erase this grudge, this was a good opportunity. They had all seen Qin Wendian's talent and strength. If Grand Xia was truly unified, those who followed Qin Wendian would definitely be able to become the ruler of a region. But this time around, if they stood on Qin Wendian's side, it would also be extremely dangerous. Danger and opportunity always coexisted, it was up to them to decide. Naturally, Back then at the Ouyang aristocrat clan, the Azure Emperor Palace had already formed an alliance with the Jiang clan. Now that Palace Lord Qin is in trouble, the Jiang clan naturally wouldn't stand idly by. An expert from the Jiang clan spoke, his words causing the countenances of the ascendants to turn incredibly unsightly. They then turned to the experts from the Thousand Zhu Alliance and asked, "What about the rest of you?" Palace Lord Qin is a 5th Zhu guest elder of our Thousand Zhu Alliance. Sadly, he has never exercised the authority of a 5th Zhu guest elder before. But since he is a guest elder of our Thousand Zhu Alliance, since you guys want to deal with him, our Thousand Zhu Alliance will definitely do our best to assist you. The two experts from the Thousand Zhu Alliance laughed. As the sound of their voice faded, the countenances of the ascendants grew even more unsightly. In this case, other than Qin Wentian, the Jiang clan now had a total of 9 ascendants. Mo Qingqing thanks everyone on behalf of Wentian. After this matter, Mo Qingqing, guarantee that the Jiang clan and the Thousand Zhu Alliance would definitely have a foothold in Grand Xia. Mo Qingqing faintly spoke. Although these words seemed to be polite words, in truth, it was to reassure the hearts of the ascendants from the Jiang clan and the Thousand Zhu Alliance. Why did they take the risk to help Qin Wentian? Wasn't it because of a promise? Do you guys really want to help the evildoer? The Shi clan ancestor coldly spoke as the auras of the group of ascendants erupted forth. Everyone. At this moment, the Hua clan ancestor suddenly spoke. The gazes of everyone turned to him only to hear him speaking, "My Hua clan will no longer participate in this matter. Farewell." After speaking, he actually left together with another ascendant from the Hua clan. This caused the countenances of the Shi clan ancestor and the others to turn ashen. Although the strength of the ascendants grew stronger, they were the ones who were weakened instead. But luckily, they still had an absolute advantage. Kill. The Shi clan ancestor coldly spoke. Since things have come to this, there was no way to salvage the situation. If we kill Qin Wentian, all their hopes would be severed. The voice of the Green Cloud Sovereign was ice cold. The crowd nodded their heads. The reason why the Thousand Zhu Alliance and Jiang clan took the risk was because Qin Wentian was simply too outstanding. They didn't want to become a vassal state after Grand Xia was unified. Hence, they decided to gamble today, placing all their hopes on Qin Wentian, this young man who had created so many miracles. Chapter 679. In the royal sacred region, the demonic beasts summoned by Qin Wentian had already returned, sending the invitations to the Medicine Sovereign Valley, Yi Country, and the Battle Sword Sect. This news didn't startle anyone else in the royal sacred region. In the eyes of the experts of the royal sacred region, Grand Xia was a desolate place. Who would cast their gazes on a tiny little country like Chu? Qin Wentian had already vanished from the royal sacred region for several months. Many people guessed that he was in closed-door seclusion and there wasn't much of a surprise. As for those experts who received the invitations, they had already calculated the date and were preparing to depart for Chu. And in the immortal palace located in the illusionary mountain range of the royal sacred region, Di Tian was still frenziedly tempering himself. At this moment, the one fighting against Di Tian was a middle-aged man clad in black demonic armor. He was tall and sturdy, and his battle prowess was monstrous. Every time he blasted out a palm imprint, it would seem as though the entire void was shrouded in it, suppressing and killing all enemies. It was extremely powerful. Although Di Tian couldn't sense the combination of true intents within it, he could guess that the palm imprint definitely contained the true intent of space. Di Tian brandished an ancient halberd in his hands as he frenziedly stabbed out. Numerous palm imprints blotted out the skies, burying the space around him within, making it impossible for him to see the outside world. Every time he fought against the middle-aged man, Di Tian would be beaten half to death. If it wasn't for the fact that his opponent showed mercy, he would have already died. Bzzz. Yet another palm imprint blasted out. Di Tian's eyes flashed with coldness as the ancient halberd in his hands blasted out. In that instant, the ancient halberd glowed with a resplendent light as it arced through the air, slashing and piercing. Chi, chi. A resplendent halberd scar was left on the surface of the incoming palm imprint. After that, a surge of destructive energy gushed out in all directions. An incomparably violent destructive energy erupted forth in an instant, directly shattering the palm imprint into smithereens. Good. The middle-aged man stepped out as he blasted out another palm strike, slamming down from the air above Di Tian, exuding a towering might. Bzzz. Di Tian's silhouette soared upwards. His arms danced as the ancient halberd pierced through the air. Everywhere the halberd passed by, a terrifying destructive light erupted forth, containing a fearsome might within. With a thunderous boom, the ancient halberd slammed into the palm imprint, causing it to explode once again. However, the speed of the burly middle-aged man's attacks grew faster and faster, while Di Tian's counterattacks grew more and more ferocious as well. Destructive currents of energy ravaged this entire space. It was as though their energies had been compressed to the extreme. Both of them had extremely strong control over their energies. Finally, when everything stopped, the burly middle-aged man retreated to the side and smiled at Di Tian. Not bad, the power of your demonic sword-type energy has already surpassed the illusory demon force. It can be said to be your strongest attack. Also, if you infuse this energy into your sword or palm arts, the power would be even more fearsome. Emichim, it's finally perfected. The sword demon force is even more ferocious compared to the illusory demonic energy. In terms of attack power, it can be considered an evolution of the illusory demonic energy, but it lacks the bewitching nature of the illusory demonic energy. It can be considered an extremely powerful attack. Di Tian nodded. Your rate of improvement is simply too shocking. I'm filled with anticipation for the day you defeat us. The burly middle-aged man laughed. During these few days, Di Tian's improvement had been witnessed by all of them. It was simply too shocking. Maybe, Di Tian would really be able to pass the test. I also wish to accomplish this as soon as possible, hoping to gain control of the Immortal Palace. In that case, seniors wouldn't have to endure the torment of being restricted. Di Tian sighed in his heart as he turned his gaze over. From afar, several gazes were staring at him. These gazes were all filled with the light of hope. This caused Di Tian to clench his fists tightly. He would definitely succeed. In the Mo residence of Chu, a great battle was about to erupt. Kill Qin Wentian. The Sure ancestor commanded. Instantly, the experts of the Qin clan stepped out as they unleashed their constellations. In an instant, the entire sky vanished, replaced by a sea of starlight. Stop them. Fairy Qingmei's countenance was incredibly unsightly to behold. She stepped towards the Sure ancestor as she unleashed her shadow glamour constellation. Your choices are truly foolish. The Wang ancestor coldly spoke as he stared at the Jiang ancestor. After which, he stepped towards the Jiang ancestor as a beam of saber light shot out from his constellation, slashing down from the starry space. Humph, the Jiang ancestor coldly snorted as he rushed forward. Let's hope that Qin Wentian still had some trump cards hidden up his sleeves. If not, this battle would truly be extremely dangerous. Everyone from the Mo residence, retreat immediately. Mo Qingqing stood in the air as she shouted. The people of the Mo residence felt a sense of helplessness as they hurriedly retreated. In front of such a powerful expert, let alone speaking of helping, they didn't even have the ability to interfere. On Mo Qingqing's body, wisps of jade-green flames appeared. These flames enveloped her entire body, forming an incomparably resplendent flame armor that enveloped her within. A terrifying incineration might engulf the heavens and earth. This was a treasure left behind by the medicine sovereign. It had the ability to both attack and defend. She retreated, protecting the courtyard where Qin Wentian was at. Very swiftly, she saw a few celestial phenomenon ascendants breaking out of the encirclement. Her brows couldn't help but furrow. Although they already had 9 celestial phenomenon ascendants on their side, the number of ascendants on their side was simply too much. They easily entangled all 9 of them, and at this moment, there were 3 ascendants rushing over. Destroying Qin Wentian was their number 1 mission. Among the 3 ascendants, one was from the Star-Seizing Manor, one was the Swallow Sword Lord, his attack prowess was extremely terrifying, and the last one was from the Demon Continent. Step aside. The Sword Lord's voice was sharp. He stretched out both his hands and instantly, countless beams of sword light rained down from the sky. Rumbling sounds rang out unceasingly as everything below was reduced to dust as the buildings crumbled. Mo Qingsheng radiated a resplendent flame halo, enveloping this entire space, blocking Qin Wentian's path. How can you block the 3 of us? Today, he will die for sure. The Sword Lord faintly spoke. After which, he formed a sword incantation as a constellation manifested around him. A single sword manifested into a total of 9 swords, all of them radiating a destructive glow as they shot towards Mo Qingsheng. The flame armor on Mo Qingsheng's body burned even more intensely. She punched out with both her fists, causing flames to engulf the heavens and earth, clashing against the sword light. The celestial phenomenon ascendance of the demon continent soared through the air as a myriad of demonic beasts rushed towards Mo Qingsheng. Mo Qingsheng's countenance turned pale as she unleashed a torrent of flames towards the incoming demonic beasts. At this moment, a terrifying palm imprint slammed down from behind Qin Wentian, directly tearing apart the screen of flames. The Star-Seizing Manor Ascendant directly appeared in the airspace above Qin Wentian. Staring at the sleeping Qin Wentian, his eyes flickered with killing intent. Resplendent astral light circulated in his palms as a palm imprint of annihilation condensed. However, at this very moment, in the midst of the ruins, Qin Wentian abruptly opened his eyes as a terrifying beam of cold light shot out. This beam of cold light actually caused the heart of the Star-Seizing Manor Ascendant to tremble. A third eye appeared in the center of Qin Wentian's brows. Within that eye, a terrifying vortex appeared, causing the entire space to revolve around it. This entire space abruptly dimmed, as though it had transformed into a world controlled by Qin Wentian. After which, Qin Wentian slowly stood up, transforming into a beam of light as he dashed towards the Star-Seizing Manor Ascendant. Scram! The Ascendant from the Star-Seizing Manor roared in rage. He blasted out with his palms, causing the entire space to tremble as a violent shockwave ravaged the surroundings. The countenance of that Ascendant flickered with sharpness as he jabbed his finger into the center of his brows. In the blink of an eye, a brilliant light erupted forth, instantly restoring clarity to the surroundings. In that instant earlier, he had actually fallen into the dreamscape of Qin Wentian. Luckily, his strength was strong and his will was resolute. If he was a heavenly dipper sovereign, a single glance from Qin Wentian would be enough to drag him into the dreamscape. But at this moment, Qin Wentian had already stood up. His finger slid across the demon's sword he had just pulled out. Fresh blood dyed the demon's sword red as sword chi towered up into the sky. A resplendent glow enveloped his body, as though a terrifying energy had transformed into a suit of armor. You want to kill me? Qin Wentian inclined his head. Wielding the blood-stained demon's sword in his hand, he slowly walked up into the air. His white robes fluttered in the wind, and although he looked extremely weak, just a single glance from him was enough to cause the Ascendant from the Star-Seizing Manor to feel fear. Do you know how Ouyang Mutian died? Qin Wentian spoke again. His voice seemed to contain a magical power within, causing the hearts of those who heard it to tremble. He is already an arrow at the end of its flight. Kill him. The Sword Lord in the air mocked. Astral light cascaded down onto the Ascendant from the Star-Seizing Manor as millions of palm imprints blasted out from his constellation. Qin Wentian continued walking towards him as a storm of destructive sword chi directly tore apart the incoming palm imprints. Is that so? An incomparably mocking light flickered in Qin Wentian's eyes as he continued walking towards the Ascendant. Die! A terrifying astral light erupted forth from the Ascendant from the Star-Seizing Manor. His palms blasted out as the light from his palm imprints was even more dazzling compared to the constellations in the sky. Roar! An incomparably terrifying roar of a demonic beast rang out as a silhouette stepped out from Qin Wentian's body. This silhouette was actually in the form of Qin Wentian. It was none other than the Bloodline Protector. The Bloodline Protector blasted out a palm strike, colliding with the palm imprints of the Ascendant from the Star-Seizing Manor. Demonic chi engulfed the entire space as the palm imprints exploded apart. The heart of the Ascendant from the Star-Seizing Manor trembled. What was that? At this moment, Qin Wentian, who had been nearing him, slashed out with the demon sword in his right hand. The demon sword arced through the air, causing a terrifying vortex of destruction to form in the air. Even space itself was trembling as it crumbled apart. That sword strike didn't look too dazzling, yet it caused the heart of the Ascendant from the Star-Seizing Manor to tremble violently. Both his palms blasted out explosively at the same time, yet when the demon sword sliced through the air, everything shattered apart. The instant the demon sword came into contact with the palm imprints actually disintegrated. Puchi. The demon sword directly pierced into the body of the Ascendant from the Star-Seizing Manor. It didn't penetrate any of his vitals, but at this instant, the Ascendant from the Star-Seizing Manor had an expression of deep terror on his face. Despair. The eyes of the spectators who were fighting in the air all narrowed. Under their gazes, the body of the Ascendant from the Star-Seizing Manor was directly disintegrated into nothingness. Qin Wentian caught the floating demon sword as he swept his gaze onto the spectators in the air. Who else wants to kill me? Chapter 680. The battle in the air abruptly halted. The gazes of everyone turned to Qin Wentian as their hearts pounded violently. A celestial phenomenon Ascendant from the Star-Seizing Manor was slain with a single sword strike. How could that attack earlier be so powerful? Qin Wentian swept his gaze over the crowd. He didn't exude any tyrannical aura, but the mysterious energy radiating from him caused everyone to feel a sense of extreme threat. Qin Wentian wielded the demon sword in his hands as he advanced in the air. On the surface of the sword, motes of light could be seen, leaving behind sword scars in the air. Everywhere Qin Wentian passed by, sword scars would be left behind as the destructive might radiating from him gushed forth in all directions. It was as though as long as one came into contact with it, they would be instantly annihilated, just like what happened to that Ascendant from the Star-Seizing Manor. A fusion of true intense, and it's an absolute attack power. The countenances of the Ascendants were all incredibly unsightly to behold. Even the strongest among them could only fuse two true intents into their constellations. The vast majority of them could only fuse a single true intent into their martial souls to manifest their constellations. These were the weakest Ascendants. Before Qin Wentian stepped into the celestial phenomenon realm, he had already started fusing true intents. Once his constellation was formed, the attack power of his celestial phenomenon would be extremely terrifying. The demon sword hummed, whistling unceasingly as the sword scars in the air grew longer and longer. Qin Wentian slowly walked to the center of the battlefield. His gaze swept over the crowd. Trying to kill me when I'm injured? Very good. Now I'll give you guys two choices. 1. Continue to kill me. 2. Scram immediately. I'll be here on the day of my grand wedding and I'll announce how I want to deal with all of you. Qin Wentian's voice was as domineering as ever, so domineering that it caused the hearts of the Ascendants to tremble. They were truly afraid of Qin Wentian. Ever since Qin Wentian returned to Grand Xia, he had done too many terrifying things. The first thing he did was to invade the Ouyang aristocrat clan, killing 3 ascendants of the Ouyang aristocrat clan. After that, he reorganized the Azure Emperor Palace and forced the Azure Emperor Palace to relocate to the ancient kingdom of Grand Xia. This was the reason why the Dark Shadow Sovereign tried to assassinate him. However, even Dark Shadow Sovereign failed, leaving injured, to the extent where he didn't even participate anymore, as if he was quite scared of Qin Wentian. All of these had caused Qin Wentian to be injured and lying on the ground. They were still deeply afraid of him. In fact, many of them could have attacked Qin Wentian, but many of them were extremely scheming people. They did not attack him, but chose other opponents instead. They let their opponents entangle them, and let others test Qin Wentian's trump card. And indeed, they saw the death of the ascendant from the star-seizing manor. This death deepened their fear of Qin Wentian. This young man standing in the middle of the battlefield with a demon's sword in his hands was truly terrifying. I don't believe that he still has the ability to deal with us. Don't listen to his bluff, he is just trying to scare us. A voice drifted over. From afar, the Green Cloud Sovereign stared coldly at Qin Wentian. Qin Wentian looked at him with cold eyes and said sarcastically, "Why are you standing so far away? Come and kill me." The gazes of the crowd landed on the Green Cloud Sovereign only to hear someone speaking, "You go and kill him, we will act as your protectors." The Green Cloud Sovereign frowned, he swept his gaze over to the person who spoke. He wasn't so stupid. What if Qin Wentian went all out? Even if he was an arrow at the end of its flight, he should still be able to kill one or two of them. "If you don't want to come, I will." Qin Wentian stepped out, moving towards the Green Cloud Sovereign, leaving scars in the air. A destructive aura enveloped him as his incomparably sharp eyes stared at the Green Cloud Sovereign, causing the latter to feel a deep sense of fear. The Green Cloud Sovereign's countenance turned ashen. "Everyone, attack together. He definitely won't be able to withstand it." Nobody bothered with him. These people wouldn't care about the life or death of the Green Cloud Sovereign. It was better to let the Green Cloud Sovereign probe Qin Wentian's strength. Seeing that nobody bothered with him, the Green Cloud Sovereign's countenance turned incredibly unsightly. "You all are useless. Since this is the case, all of you can just wait for your deaths." After speaking, his silhouette abruptly turned and directly fled, vanishing from this place in the blink of an eye. Staring at the vanishing Green Cloud Sovereign, Qin Wentian didn't chase after him. He turned his gaze to the others. These ascendants were actually so frightened by Qin Wentian that none of them dared to act. One couldn't help but to say that this was a kind of irony. Humans would always have their own selfish motives. Nobody was willing to be the first to act. Earlier, the death of the expert from the star-seizing manor was witnessed by everyone. "You don't dare to kill me, but you still refuse to scram." Qin Wentian glanced at the silent crowd before moving towards the second person. This time around, he chose an expert from the multidirectional Thunderwind sect. That person had an ashen expression as he stared at the others. Right now, everyone was still hesitating whether they should fight to the death today or not. "Fine, I will act first." That expert from the multidirectional Thunderwind sect roared in rage. His constellation appeared as wind and thunder ravaged the area, sweeping towards Qin Wentian. In just an instant, Qin Wentian's surroundings were filled with destructive qi currents. But as long as it neared Qin Wentian's body, it would instantly be destroyed. Qin Wentian dragged the demon's sword behind him. The demon's sword shone resplendently, exuding a terrifying light. "Attacks from constellations can't get close to me." The hearts of the crowd trembled. The third eye in the center of Qin Wentian's brows opened once more as a terrifying attack directly invaded his opponent's will. His eyes were filled with confusion, as though he was shuttling back and forth between two different dimensions. He gritted his teeth, not allowing himself to sink into that dreamscape. A beam of white light flashed by. After which, the beam of white light expanded in size, gleaming with a terrifying golden luster. The incomparably sharp fangs directly lunged towards the ascendant of the multidirectional Thunderwind sect, with the speed of lightning. "Vile beast!" That expert from the multidirectional Thunderwind sect blasted out with his palms. Terrifying wind and lightning diagrams could be seen on his palms, blasting forward. That beam of white light was actually an incomparably baleful demonic beast. Cracking sounds rang out as the wind and lightning palms were shattered. The sharp fangs continued biting towards his throat. Bzzz. At the same instant, Qin Wentian's demon's sword arced through the air, piercing towards him. Everywhere it passed by, everything was destroyed. The countenance of that expert from the multidirectional Thunderwind sect drastically changed. His body soared up into the air, akin to a bolt of lightning. But at this moment, Qin Wentian's body transformed into numerous incarnations. With a howl of rage, countless palm imprints blasted out, directly enveloping the entire space, wanting to shatter everything. Those palm imprints transformed into millstones of destruction, akin to a tempest from the apocalypse. That expert from the multidirectional Thunder Wind sect was in the center of this tempest. A look of terror could be seen on his face as he felt the destructive might gushing into his body. Die! Qin Wentian's palms pressed downwards. With a thunderous boom, motes of light shot out, destroying everything in that space. Only the light of destruction remained. Gulp! Someone swallowed a mouthful of saliva, trembling in fear. Too domineering, he was like a god of death. Whoever he walked towards, that person would die. That demonic beast landed on Qin Wentian's shoulder. It was actually that beautiful little demon. When it bared its fangs, it was actually so terrifying. The demon's sword returned. Qin Wentian swept his gaze over everyone again. Nobody dared to match his gaze. Seems like all of you still want to kill me. Qin Wentian chose another person and walked over. That person abruptly turned and shouted, Qin Wentian, the grudge between us isn't that deep. Back then, it was the others who wanted to invite the Dark Shadow Sovereign to help us. I wasn't able to do so alone. From now onwards, I will no longer interfere in your matters. After speaking, that expert actually turned and departed, vanishing from sight very quickly. The countenance of the sure ancestor was extremely unsightly to behold. Earlier when Qin Wentian was dealing with the ascendant from the multidirectional Thunder Wind sect, he should have gotten everyone to act together. However, humans are all selfish creatures. They wanted to see how much combat strength Qin Wentian had left, and they didn't dare to take the risk. Yet they discovered that they still couldn't see through Qin Wentian's strength. Their strength was continuously being weakened. Glancing at the lineup of both sides, he discovered that it was already extremely difficult to kill Qin Wentian. Since this is the case, we will come again to listen to your guidance during your grand wedding. The sure ancestor drew in a deep breath. This time around, the morale of the people had already dissipated. He could only give up. As the sound of his voice faded, everyone sighed. However, they felt an indescribable sense of relief. They had been living a peaceful life for far too long. As transcendent characters, it was extremely rare for them to engage in combat. Yet now, Qin Wentian actually brought them a sense of impending doom. The pressure he exuded was so strong that it caused them to feel as though they were suffocating. The sound of wind gusted by, the sure ancestor was the first to depart. His long robes fluttered in the wind as he sighed in his heart. If he missed this opportunity, it would be as difficult as ascending to the heavens if he wanted to kill Qin Wentian again. Wait until the day of Qin Wentian's grand wedding to mobilize all the ascendants of Grand Xia. After the sure ancestor departed, the others also departed one after another. Very swiftly, all the invading experts were gone. The ascendants of the Jiang clan and Thousand Ju alliance all had smiles on their faces. It seemed that their gamble had paid off. Staring at the young man wielding a sword who stood proudly in the air, they felt that they had truly aged. In the future, Grand Xia would belong to him. No, his future shouldn't be limited to just Grand Xia. Those from the Mo clan all returned. They had been observing from afar. Although they already admired Qin Wentian, they soon discovered that they had still underestimated Qin Wentian. These people were all the transcendent characters of Grand Xia. Even the Green Cloud Sovereign was a transcendent character from the Ginkgo continent. Even when facing these people, Qin Wentian was still so domineering and tyrannical. Qin Wentian nodded his head to the ascendants of the Jiang clan and Thousand Ju alliance. On the day of my grand wedding, the Jiang clan and Thousand Ju alliance can all be esteemed guests. It's good that sect leader Qin is safe. Smiles appeared on the faces of the four ascendants. It seemed like the unification of Grand Xia was inevitable. But who would be the one to control Grand Xia after the unification was a different matter altogether. I'm going back to recuperate. Qin Wentian calmly spoke. After which, he slowly walked back to the place he was at earlier and laid down. This scene caused a thought to appear in the minds of the ascendants of the Jiang clan and Thousand Zhu alliance. If those ascendants really didn't hesitate to fight to the death against Qin Wentian, what would the final ending be? Most probably, only Qin Wentian knew the answer. As for how serious his injuries were, nobody knew. The only thing the spectators could see was that he domineeringly killed 2 ascendants. Chapter 681. After the ascendants of Grand Xia left, the Mo residence was swiftly rebuilt. Fairy Qingmei and the other ascendants all stayed in the Mo residence. Other than them, the ascendants from the Jiang clan and Thousand Zhu alliance didn't leave the Mo residence. This way, they could prevent the ascendants of Grand Xia from making a move again. Secondly, they could improve their relationship with Qin Wentian. The only regretful thing was that Qin Wentian had been in closed-door seclusion. Only Mo Qingcheng was by his side and knew of Qin Wentian's situation. As for the others, they knew nothing about Qin Wentian at all. They guessed that Qin Wentian's injuries must have been extremely heavy this time around. After suffering an assassination attempt by the Dark Shadow Sovereign, he disregarded his injuries and stood up to fight, scaring away the ascendants of Grand Xia. Such a battle record was enough to cause people to tremble in fear just thinking about it. No wonder those ascendants were intimidated by Qin Wentian and left unwillingly. They didn't dare to gamble with their lives. Time slowly flowed by, the date of Qin Wentian's wedding got closer and closer. The royal capital of Chu was in an uproar. The Emperor Chu Wuwei frequently came to the Mo residence to pay a visit. Qin Chuan did the same as well, discussing the details of the wedding. Finally, they unanimously decided to set the location of the wedding at the Emperor Star Academy, the sacred ground of Chu's Wuxiu, the place where Qin Wentian grew up. This was undoubtedly the most suitable location, and with regards to this, everyone in the Emperor Star Academy was naturally in agreement. In the Mo residence, Mo Yu and Mo Feng were currently cultivating. 2 ascendants from the Jiang clan sat beside them and one of them laughed. Mo Feng, be more imposing. Treat the spear as your arm and control your strength according to your will, converging it to a single point. Mo Yu, your swordplay is too flashy. You need to be sharper and more decisive. Old man Mo and the other elders of the Mo clan had smiles on their faces. During these days, the ascendants from the Jiang clan and Thousand Zhu alliance would frequently guide the juniors of the Mo residence in cultivation. Such a situation was simply something they didn't dare to imagine. These ascendants were all characters on the same level as the Green Cloud Sovereign, and they were famous even earlier. Now, they were actually guiding the juniors of the Mo residence in cultivation. Moreover, they were quite polite to them. Of course, the people of the Mo family were not muddle-headed. They knew that the other party was doing this because of Qin Wentian. Qin Wentian was simply too domineering, so domineering that even the other ascendants feared him. And these ascendants also wanted to form a good relationship with Qin Wentian. This was why they had been protecting the Mo residence and guiding the people of the Mo residence. Old Master, is Grand Master Qin awake yet? The day of the wedding is coming soon, right? Looking at Old Master Mo, the Old Master of the Jiang family chuckled out. Not yet, Qingqing is taking care of him. Since Qingqing didn't delay the wedding date, she naturally knows what to do. Old man Mo smiled. That's true. Madam Sect Master knows what she's doing. It's an old man like me who has spoken too much. The Jiang family's patriarch smiled and said, Ouyang and Jiang Ting are really too much. They haven't brought anyone over to help since the last time we visited. They are also newlyweds, they naturally have their own matters to attend to. Old man Mo laughed. He naturally knew who Ouyang Guangsheng and Jiang Ting were. That's true. Speaking of which, this is all fate. Back then when they were young, they became good friends. Now, it has already been over 10 years, yet their relationship is still so good. How rare, how rare. The Jiang family's patriarch and Old Master Mo chatted about ordinary things, causing Old Master Mo to feel a little uncomfortable. Ha, it's fate indeed. Back then in the Moon Continent, Grandmaster Qin had already become a fourth-ranked Grandmaster before the age of 19. At that time, our Thousand Jew Alliance already knew that Grandmaster Qin was someone extraordinary, hence, we invited him to be our guest elder. An expert from the Thousand Jew Alliance laughed, his words causing the Jiang family's patriarch to glance at him with disdain. Stop bragging. At that time, you didn't even know Wentian, right? You speak as if you knew him. That expert from the Thousand Jew Alliance sneered. Upon seeing the two of them bickering, those from the Mo clan couldn't help but roll their eyes. Who? At this moment, the eyes of the experts from the Thousand Jew Alliance and Jiang clan abruptly gleamed with a terrifying coldness. They turned their gazes over as trepidation could be seen flickering in their eyes. There were actually several tyrannical auras sweeping over here. Extending their perception outwards, the countenances of the experts from the Thousand Jew Alliance and Jiang clan stiffened as looks of bewilderment appeared on their faces. After which, they soared up into the air, arriving in the airspace above the Mo residence. Not only for them, Fairy Qingmei and the others also did the same. Although the people of the Mo residence were slow in their reactions, they soon felt that something was amiss. There was a powerful aura that locked onto the Mo residence and was heading in their direction. The people of the Mo residence all soared up into the air. From afar, a group of female silhouettes flew over. They were like a group of celestial fairies, exuding an extraordinary aura. Not only that, many of them were extremely powerful. There are quite a few at the celestial phenomenon realm. The hearts of the Jiang clan's patriarch and the others trembled as they stared warily at the incoming group. Indeed, they stopped in the airspace above the Mo residence as their gazes turned towards a certain courtyard, causing the hearts of the crowd to grow even more nervous. Bzz. The silhouettes descended, moving in the direction of that courtyard. Hold it right there. Fairy Qingmei and the others called out. However, it was as though these silhouettes didn't hear anything. One of them even coldly glanced at Fairy Qingmei, causing her to feel a sense of trepidation. At this moment, a silhouette walked out from a room in the courtyard. It was none other than Mo Qingcheng. The silhouettes of the female cultivators landed in the courtyard, standing in front of Mo Qingcheng. This caused Fairy Qingmei and the others in the Mo residence to feel extremely nervous. These mysterious experts were simply too threatening. However, in the next instant, under the shocked gazes of the crowd, those female cultivators all bowed to Mo Qingcheng as their voices rang out in unison. We pay our respects to the Holy Maiden. A row of experts dressed in the same robes bowed to Mo Qingcheng. The impact of this scene to Fairy Qingmei, the experts from the Jiang clan and the Thousand Jew Alliance, as well as those from the Mo residence was extremely intense. All of them were instantly dumbfounded as their hearts pounded violently. They stared at Mo Qingcheng only to see Mo Qingcheng's calm and indifferent eyes sweeping over them. At this moment, only then did they truly understand the aura Mo Qingcheng exuded. What was laughable was that they were still puzzled as to why Mo Qingcheng didn't feel any fear in her heart when she saw Celestial Phenomenon Ascendants. Celestial Phenomenon Ascendants? Most probably, even Mo Qingcheng's subordinates would be able to sweep through Grand Xia. While the experts from the Jiang clan and Thousand Jew Alliance were shocked, their hearts were also filled with wild joy. They knew that the situation in Grand Xia was already determined. It was laughable that those people still joined forces to deal with Qin Wentian. If it wasn't for the fact that Qin Wentian was careless and didn't expect the Dark Shadow Sovereign to act, they would only need to wait for a few more days and they would be able to easily sweep through Grand Xia. When will Master arrive? Mo Qingcheng stared at the experts as she asked. The Medicine Sovereign and the others should arrive on time for the celebration. He told us to come here first. Holy Maiden, if you have any matters, you can instruct us to do it. The person in the lead replied. Right. Mo Qingcheng nodded. After which, she turned to Fairy Qingmei and the others. If Fairy Qingmei is free, you can bring them to Grand Xia. Before the date of the wedding, send the invitations to all the transcendent powers in Grand Xia, not missing a single one. This is also Wentian's intention. Right. Fairy Qingmei nodded, her heart was extremely restless. She knew that the situation in Grand Xia was already determined. There were no more variables. You stay behind. Mo Qingqing stared at the woman in the lead. Yes, holy maiden. That person nodded. After which, Fairy Qingmei, Old Xing and the other ascendants from the Azure Emperor Palace led the experts from the Medicine Sovereign Valley and split into 3 groups, heading towards the 9 continents of Grand Xia. Mo Qingqing turned and walked towards her room. Qin Wentian sat up and opened his eyes. He smiled at Mo Qingqing, my wife is getting more and more imposing. Mo Qingqing rolled her eyes at Qin Wentian. After which, she sat down beside Qin Wentian and took out a medicinal pill, feeding it to Qin Wentian. Eating again. Qin Wentian had a bitter expression on his face. These few days, he was already sick of eating medicinal pills. Mo Qingqing made him eat over 10 different types of medicinal pills every single day. Do you want to eat or not? Mo Qingqing pouted. Staring at the adorable look on Mo Qingqing's face, Qin Wentian gently caressed her cheeks as he smiled, okay, eat. I'm afraid that if I continue to nourish myself like this, wouldn't it be too much? After speaking, he swallowed the medicinal pill that Mo Qingqing personally fed him, as an expression of enjoyment could be seen on his face. It's not like you don't know that the medicinal pills I concocted for you are all nourishing pills that allow you to calm your qi and spirit, nourish your blood and meridians, as well as heal your injuries and bones. They will only help you to gradually recover from the overload you've suffered this time around. Next time, don't be so impulsive. Mo Qingqing gently spoke. I know. Qin Wentian hugged Mo Qingqing's soft body, allowing her to lie on his lap. He gently stroked her hair as he smiled, Qingqing, I'm going to marry you soon. It's not too late for you to regret now. I've already regretted it for over 10 years. Since I've boarded your pirate ship, there's no way for me to escape. Mo Qingqing gently spoke as she quietly laid there. During this period of time, although Qin Wentian was heavily injured, he also had a rare period of peace and quiet. So it turns out that I'm a pirate ship. Do you want to taste my devil claws? Qin Wentian's hands became restless, causing Mo Qingqing's face to turn red. She glared at Qin Wentian with her charming eyes, yet there was a feeling of ecstasy in her heart. On the second day, more people arrived at the Mo residence. All of them exuded an extraordinary aura, but this time around, the people of the Mo residence were already mentally prepared. After asking around, they learned that these people were here for Qin Wentian. After which, everyone mused in their hearts. Yesterday, it was Mo Qingqing's sect. Today, was it Qin Wentian's sect? Qin Wentian wore a simple white robe as he walked out. This was the first time he walked out of his room during this period of time. Staring at the figures who arrived, a warm smile appeared in Qin Wentian's eyes. Senior Lin Shuai, Senior Fei Xue, Sis Ling Shuang, you guys are all here. Qin Wentian smiled at the group of people who arrived. These were all his good friends from the Battle Sword sect. He nodded to them, and when he saw Lu Bingyu, a look of bewilderment flashed in his eyes. He didn't expect that Lu Bingyu would actually come here. Wentian, what's wrong? Why do you seem so weak? Lin Shuai stared at Qin Wentian in bewilderment. Nothing much, I'm just a little fatigued. Senior brother, there's no need to worry. Qin Wentian smiled. The people at the side silently mused that they were right. Seems like the people from Qin Wentian's sect have arrived. All of them exuded an extraordinary aura, especially that young man whom Qin Wentian referred to as senior brother Lin Shuai. Earlier, when the Jiang ancestor locked gazes with him, he could clearly sense the sharpness in his eyes. Although this young man was very young, he was definitely extremely terrifying. He wasn't someone the Jiang ancestor could fight against. Chapter 682. Lin Shuai felt somewhat bewildered. Given Qin Wentian's strength, unless he was heavily injured, it was impossible for him to be in such a weakened state. Something must have happened. However, Qin Wentian didn't seem to mind at all, hence, Lin Shuai didn't probe further. Wentian, the old ancestor told me to send his regards to you. He won't be coming over personally, Lin Shuai spoke to Qin Wentian. That's only natural. I'll have to trouble the old ancestor to still be concerned about me. Qin Wentian smiled. Nominally speaking, Qin Wentian no longer had any relationship with the Battle Sword sect. The old ancestor was the previous sect leader of the Battle Sword sect, as well as the vice sect leader of the Royal Sacred sect. Naturally, it wasn't convenient for him to come over. Lin Shuai and the others could use the excuse of being friends with Qin Wentian to come over. Even if the Royal Sacred sect knew about this, they wouldn't be able to say anything. The experts from the Jiang clan and Thousand Ju alliance felt their hearts trembling when they heard this. Old ancestor. This young man was already so terrifying. How strong was the old ancestor of their sect? He even personally sent a message to greet Qin Wentian. From this, one could see how highly he regarded Qin Wentian. Seems like Qin Wentian's achievements in the outside world had far surpassed their imaginations. Sister Lingshuang, foster father wouldn't be absent, right? Qin Wentian turned his gaze to Yi Lingshuang. Yi Qingyun had instructed Qin Wentian before to invite him no matter what or he would be angry. Naturally, royal father will definitely arrive on time. How can royal father possibly be absent for the grand wedding between you and Qingcheng? Yi Lingshuang smiled. Royal father. The hearts of everyone trembled. The emperor of the royal sacred region, that level was something they couldn't even imagine. Such a character was actually Qin Wentian's foster father. Would he also appear on the day of Qin Wentian's grand wedding? As they thought of this, the Jiang ancestor and the ascendants of the Thousand Ju alliance exchanged glances as a look of deep meaning flashed in their eyes. Luckily, they didn't choose the wrong side or that would truly be the end of the world. What was laughable was that the ascendants of Grand Xia actually wanted to surround and kill Qin Wentian. Even if they managed to kill Qin Wentian, the entire Grand Xia would be buried together with him. Luckily, on the day of Qin Wentian's grand wedding, those people would surely be dumbfounded. I wonder what sort of characters Mo Qingqing's master and Qin Wentian's foster father are. I should be able to meet them when the time comes. The Jiang ancestor silently mused. Just as the patriarch of the Jiang family thought, the overlords of the Great Xia dynasty were all dumbfounded. Mo Qingqing told the ascendants of the Azure Emperor Palace to lead the experts from the Medicine Sovereign Valley to split into 3 groups and head towards Grand Xia to deliver the invitations. The transcendent powers who received the invitations all felt their hearts trembling with trepidation. For example, the Green Cloud Pavilion. The Green Cloud Sovereign had always sent people to spy on Chu. When the ascendants from the Medicine Sovereign Valley and Old Xing arrived, he was already contemplating if he should flee from Grand Xia or not. Back then, it was him who lured Qin Wentian into the trap set by the Dark Shadow Sovereign. If it wasn't for him, Qin Wentian wouldn't be in such a miserable state and wouldn't be so heavily injured. Most probably, among the people Qin Wentian and Mo Qingqing hated the most, the Green Cloud Sovereign was none other than him. He silently cursed the Sure ancestor and the others in his heart. They had already lost the chance to kill Qin Wentian. The situation in Grand Xia could no longer be reversed. Everything was over. His ambitions had also come to an end. In the Green Cloud Pavilion, the Green Cloud Sovereign who had been contemplating for a long time finally made a decision. He wanted to leave, giving up on the entire Green Cloud Pavilion. Although this place contained his ambitions and dreams, he had no choice but to leave now. The possibility of Qin Wentian killing him was very high. Even if he didn't kill him, he wouldn't have any good days ahead of him. The Green Cloud Sovereign was still relatively young and had climbed all the way to where he was today. His ambitions were great and his will was resolute. He had always wanted to kill Qin Wentian and was much more ruthless compared to those old fellows. But now that there was no way to change things, he immediately decided to leave, no longer wanting to be involved in this muddy water. Qin Wentian. The Green Cloud Sovereign felt an intense resentment in his heart. Just when he was about to realize his ambitions, everything changed because of the appearance of Qin Wentian. Qin Wentian killed the emperor of the Green Cloud Imperial Empire whom he had accepted as his master. Not only that, Qin Wentian didn't show any politeness and even wanted the Green Cloud Sovereign to seek revenge personally. He, a sovereign, had always been suppressed by Qin Wentian, and now, he was even about to be driven away. Qin Wentian still had such an outstanding and beautiful wife and was about to get married. He hated Qin Wentian. Even if I leave, I will make sure you feel pain and guilt. The Green Cloud Sovereign's heart turned cold. After which, his perception gushed out, enveloping the entire Green Cloud Pavilion. After which, a voice rang out, "Bring Ling Yu to me." This voice was filled with imposingness and was extremely domineering. Ling Yu was currently under house arrest. When her grandfather heard the cold voice of the Green Cloud Sovereign, he didn't dare to disobey. He knew that right now, the Green Cloud Sovereign was extremely enraged. If he disobeyed, he would most probably die. Very swiftly, he brought Ling Yu to the Green Cloud Sovereign's chambers. Ling Yu stared at the cold and sharp eyes of the Green Cloud Sovereign with a hint of fear in her heart. However, she still bowed and greeted, "I pay my respects to the sovereign. Accompany me for a chat, the others can leave." The Green Cloud Sovereign waved his hands. Ling Yu's grandfather felt hatred in his heart, but he was helpless as well. He glanced at his granddaughter and spoke, "If Ling Yu has done anything to offend the sovereign, please show mercy." "Didn't you hear my words?" The Green Cloud Sovereign's countenance turned cold as a terrifying intent bore down on him. Ling Yu's grandfather trembled in fear as he replied, "Yes." After speaking, he directly retreated, leaving behind Ling Yu, who was even more terrified. "Stand over here, let me see clearly." The Green Cloud Sovereign spoke to Ling Yu. Ling Yu stared at the Green Cloud Sovereign as an intense fear flashed in her eyes. Her heart pounded wildly as she walked towards the Green Cloud Sovereign. "Are you afraid of me?" The Green Cloud Sovereign frowned. "Come closer." "Yes." Ling Yu's body trembled as she stopped 5 meters away from the Green Cloud Sovereign. The Green Cloud Sovereign walked forward, coming to the side of Ling Yu. He circled around Ling Yu's body as he surveyed her. After which, he lifted Ling Yu's chin as his sharp eyes gleamed with an evil light, causing Ling Yu's body to tremble even more violently. "Your figure isn't bad and your looks are top-notch as well." The Green Cloud Sovereign coldly laughed. Ling Yu's countenance instantly paled as she bowed, "Sovereign. Speaking of which, it has been a very long time since I've enjoyed the taste of a woman. You are so young and tender, your taste would surely be excellent. Being able to serve me can be considered your fortune." The Green Cloud Sovereign returned to his seat as he surveyed Ling Yu. "Take off your clothes." "Sovereign, please spare me." With a plop, Ling Yu directly knelt on the ground as her eyes turned red. "What? Are you not willing? Are you looking down on this seat?" The smile on the Green Cloud Sovereign's face turned even colder. "Don't worry, I won't kill you. After you serve me, I will get your family to send you to Qin Wentian, and tell him that. So what if he is domineering? I will still make him feel guilt and regret. As for the Green Cloud Pavilion, he can just destroy it. What does it have to do with me? Naturally, Qin Wentian can also disregard you. But Mo Feng would definitely hate him." The Green Cloud Sovereign coldly laughed, staring at Ling Yu's trembling petite body. That slender palm was prostrated on the ground, and that curvaceous figure of Ling Yu. Why didn't he know how to enjoy her in the past? "Quickly take off your clothes. If I act, things will be very rough." The Green Cloud Sovereign's voice was ice cold. "Vile spawn." Abruptly, a cold voice drifted over. The Green Cloud Sovereign abruptly stood up, his countenance was ice cold as he coldly asked, "Who is it?" Outside, a white-robed maiden directly walked over. This maiden had a veil on her face and her countenance was ice cold. A terrifying chill directly enveloped the green cloud sovereign, causing him to feel his soul shuddering. "Lass, everything's fine now." The maiden walked towards Ling Yu and helped her up. Ling Yu stared at the maiden with bewilderment in her eyes. "It's the holy maiden who ordered me to come." She and young Master Wentian had long predicted that this man would escape and told me to bring him to the wedding. "If he doesn't cooperate, I will bring his corpse with me." The maiden spoke. Ling Yu threw herself into her arms and started crying. Earlier, she was truly frightened to death. Her purity was almost tainted by the green cloud sovereign. Luckily, Sis Qingcheng and her brother-in-law were still worried about her. "Sis, brother-in-law." Ling Yu wiped her tears. When she thought of the two silhouettes, she felt extremely grateful in her heart. They had always been worried about her. And when the green cloud sovereign heard this, his countenance instantly turned as pale as paper. His palms blasted out explosively as he lunged towards Ling Yu. At the same time, he soared up into the air, wanting to flee. Bzzz. A terrifying wave of ice directly froze the entire chamber. A terrifying frost constellation manifested, freezing everything into ice sculptures. The green cloud sovereign felt his arms freezing as his body stiffened. "Qin Wentian." The green cloud sovereign roared in rage. Other than sending the wedding invitation, this man actually sent people to watch over him. Evidently, he was taking special care of him. And just like what he had expected, regardless of Qin Wentian or Mo Qingcheng, neither of them had any intentions of sparing him, the green cloud sovereign. The maiden grabbed out with her hands and abruptly waved them, slamming the body of the green cloud sovereign onto the ground. This maiden was the leader of the Medicine Sovereign Valley this time around and was naturally the strongest. How could the green cloud sovereign stand a chance against her? "If you still don't cooperate, I can only bring your corpse with me." The young lady's voice was as cold as ice. After which, her hand reached out to grab the young man. At the same time, she brought Ling Yu with her as she soared up into the sky, directly descending into the airspace above the clear cloud pavilion. In an instant, the vast clear cloud pavilion could feel the coldness emanating from the young lady. All of them raised their heads, only to see their supreme Zun being held up like a stray dog by the young lady. "That paragon of yours tried to take revenge on young Master Wentian before leaving. The Holy Maiden and young Master Wentian ordered me to capture him, and at the same time, pass down a message to the Green Cloud Pavilion. On account of past sentiments, the Green Cloud Pavilion can choose to submit to the Azure Emperor Palace, or disband. If you choose to disband, you must do so within 3 days. If you choose to submit, 3 days later, you must send a leader to attend the wedding between young Master Wentian and the Holy Maiden." The maiden's voice rang out in the air. After which, she brought the Green Cloud Sovereign and Ling Yu away, leaving behind the dumbfounded crowd. Young Master Wentian and the Holy Maiden, a grand wedding. Evidently, this was referring to Qin Wentian and Mo Qingcheng. Their supreme martial artist was being carried away like a dog. The Green Cloud Pavilion could either submit or disband. Ling Yu is going to be in luck. Many mused in their hearts. The statuses of Qin Wentian and Mo Qingcheng were unimaginably terrifying. Such characters were actually their subordinates. Not only for the Green Cloud Pavilion, the various transcendent powers of Grand Xia all received the wedding invitation. When they saw the arrival of so many experts, they all deeply felt that the sky of Grand Xia was about to change. Chapter 683. In Chu, the Mo clan was extremely lively. The members of the Qin clan had all arrived at the royal capital. Qin Chuan and Old Man Mo would often sit together to discuss the details of Qin Wentian and Mo Qingcheng's wedding. Qin Wentian's friends also arrived one after another. Ouyang and Jiang Ting, Fan Lu and Xian Xian, Qin Zheng and Yun Mengyi, and even Chu Mang had brought along a girl. It was none other than Xian Yan from the Mystic Maiden Palace. This caused Qin Wentian to be somewhat taken aback, but he also reminded Chu Mang that this fellow was extremely envious. Chu Wuwei also came frequently. Firstly, it was to make arrangements. After all, he was the emperor of Chu, there were many things he could do with a single command. Secondly, it was to treat Chu Wuwei's injuries. Qin Wentian intentionally sought the help of healers from the medicine Sovereign Valley to treat the problem of Chu Wuwei's inability to cultivate. He discovered that Chu Wuwei actually possessed an extreme aperture. This type of aperture was exceedingly rare. Chu Wuwei's perception towards astral energy was extremely strong, even stronger than Chu Mang's. Hence, he was able to absorb astral energy into his body. However, his aperture had no way to store astral energy, as it would automatically flow away. Every time he tried to absorb astral energy, he would succeed. However, the astral energy would only flow through his body once. In reality, people with extreme apertures were extremely suitable for cultivation. It was just that Chu Wuwei didn't know how to refine apertures. This caused Chu Wuwei to sigh. He initially thought that Chu Wuwei was a martial trash, but who would have thought that he was actually a genius? Unfortunately, he had wasted the most optimal time to cultivate. Now that he was already over 30 years old, it would be extremely difficult for him to accomplish anything great. One could only say that fate made fools of people. Luckily, Chu Wuwei was extremely intelligent and quickly adjusted his state of mind. Compared to being a trash, this was already an extremely good ending. At the very least, he could finally cultivate. As he thought of this, the knot in Chu Wuwei's heart gradually unraveled. He wholeheartedly made arrangements for Qin Wentian's wedding. Qin Wentian and Mo Qingcheng were both extremely leisurely. They would often chat with their friends, or accompany Mo Qingcheng for a stroll around the royal capital. Right now, there was only a day left before Qin Wentian's wedding. The entire royal capital of Chu was in a state of jubilation. Banquets were held everywhere, and the royal army of Chu patrolled the royal capital, setting up banquets in all the inns and inns. All the expenses were borne by the royal clan of Chu. Qin Wentian and Mo Qingcheng strolled around the royal capital, and could only smile bitterly when they saw this scene. This Qin Wentian was truly making a big fuss, as though he was planning a grand wedding. However, Qin Wentian didn't have any intentions of rejecting. After all, it wasn't easy for the two of them to be together. Qin Wentian himself also wanted to give Mo Qingcheng an unforgettable wedding. On the rooftop, Qin Wentian and Mo Qingcheng lay there, enjoying the warmth of the sun. They felt extremely comfortable. There's only one more day. It feels like a dream. Mo Qingcheng and Qin Wentian held hands, both of them could feel the warmth of each other's palms. Bathed in the sunlight, the smile in Mo Qingcheng's eyes was as radiant as the sun. Qin Wentian turned his head, as Mo Qingcheng similarly faced him. Their gazes met, and both of them could feel the intense emotions in the depths of each other's eyes. Is this a sweet dream or a nightmare? Qin Wentian laughed as he asked. Guess. Mo Qingcheng smiled sweetly. Staring at her smiling face, Qin Wentian leaned his head forward as he gently planted a kiss on Mo Qingcheng's lips. The weather is so good. Seems like tomorrow will really be a good day. Qin Wentian rested his hands on his head as he closed his eyes, enjoying the tranquility of this moment. Mo Qingcheng's lips twitched. This fellow changed the topic after taking advantage of her. Smiling, Mo Qingcheng leaned on him, not saying anything as she enjoyed this rare moment of tranquility. A gentle breeze blew past, warming the air. Qin Wentian closed his eyes as he recalled the experiences of the past 10 years. It really felt like a dream. 10 years ago, he was still a young man in the Sky Harmony City, the adopted son of the Qin clan. In a single day, the Bai clan betrayed him, the Yi clan and the royal clan suppressed him, causing the Qin clan to be on the verge of doomsday. It was only because of Teacher Mustang's rescue that he managed to escape. He was abandoned in the wilderness and met Mo Qingcheng and Little Rascal. Sadly, he didn't know that it was Mo Qingcheng who saved him back then. With a heart filled with rage, he came to the royal capital to participate in the academy's examination. There, he met Fan Luo, and for the first time, he saw the number one beauty of Chu, Mo Qingcheng. After that, when he entered the Emperor's Star Academy to cultivate, he was provoked by the nobility of the royal capital. Not only that, the most doted-on prince of Chu, Chu Tianjiao, stood in opposition to him, causing him to experience many dangers. Everything seemed to be echoing in his mind. And after that, after the Chu country was stabilized, he headed to the moon continent of Grand Xia, joined the White Deer Institute, studied divine inscriptions, killed Hua Xiaoyun, fled to the Azure continent, entered the unmatched realm to cultivate, participated in the heavenly fate rankings, and so on, all the way to the royal sacred region, seizing the position of the top ranker in the immortal martial realm. And now, he returned to the Chu country where he grew up, wanting to unify Grand Xia. Too many things had happened in these 10+ years, but in the face of the passage of time, everything seemed so fleeting, as though it had happened just yesterday. He thought of the family, friends, and lovers he had met along the way. Holding Mo Qingcheng's hand, Qin Wentian's eyes were still closed, but he felt as though he was looking at the sky. In the air, there was an illusory silhouette that was extremely beautiful. Qin Wentian tried his best to make the silhouette more corporeal, and when he could clearly see her features, Qin Wentian's heart trembled as a sense of heartache welled up in his heart. "Qing, I'm going to get married soon. You will definitely give me your blessings, right?" Qin Wentian's lips curled up in an arc, as though he was smiling. He thought of that maiden who was always by his side, akin to a snow lotus on a mountain of ice. It had been a very long time since she appeared. Qin Wentian thought back to that day in the Battle Sword sect, when Qing told him that he didn't need her anymore. Everything seemed to have already been decided. The gentle breeze was still blowing, but it was no longer as warm as before. Instead, there were hints of coldness in it, as though it was because of the change in Qin Wentian's state of heart. A warm current flowed from his palms. Qin Wentian sighed as his silhouette in the air gradually vanished. A smile appeared on his face as he did his best to hold on to Mo Qingcheng's dainty hand tightly. It was unknown where the melody of a melody drifted over, causing one to want to fall asleep. Qin Wentian felt somewhat sleepy, and gradually, he fell asleep. In his dreams, a resplendent glow enveloped his surroundings. He saw his astral souls, the Berserk Demon Sovereign Astral Soul, the Heavenly Hammer Astral Soul that was filled with strength, and the tyrannical sharpness of his sword Astral Soul. His astral souls transformed into motes of light, dissipating in the air. However, there were still countless motes of light revolving around Qin Wentian, appearing in his dreams. Among these motes of light, there was an earthen yellow mote that represented strength, a blood-red mote that represented the berserk nature of demons, and a resplendent white mote that represented swords. The motes of light unceasingly interweaved together, fusing together, transforming into a terrifying energy. This energy circulated in the air, leaving behind scars in the air, as though it could tear apart this illusory dreamscape. A destructive might filled every nook and cranny of this dreamscape. So it can be like this. Qin Wentian woke up from his dreamscape. He opened his eyes, feeling as though he was enlightened. There were many possibilities for the fusion of true intents. Even if it was the same type of true intent, they could still fuse into different types of energy. Qin Wentian had already found a way to fuse true intents. There was no need for him to forcefully fuse them together. Dream force should be all-encompassing, walking the line between reality and illusion. What it needed wasn't necessarily the same as the fusion of illusory demonic energy. Instead, there was another way to fuse true intents. "Qingcheng." Qin Wentian called out. Mo Qingcheng replied in a gentle voice. "Let's return. I think it's time for me to start the evolution of my constellation." Qin Wentian spoke in a low voice, his words causing Mo Qingcheng's body to involuntarily tremble. Her beautiful eyes flickered with joy as she stared at Qin Wentian. "Seems like tomorrow is really going to be a good day." Mo Qingcheng smiled. Since Qin Wentian said that it was possible to evolve his constellation, it would definitely be true. A celestial phenomenon ascendant below the age of 30, even in the royal sacred region, they would definitely tremble in fear. Qin Wendian smiled and nodded his head. In truth, when he comprehended his true intent and stepped into the 9th level of Heavenly Dipper, he could already attempt to break through to celestial phenomenon. However, in the Medicine Sovereign Valley, he had browsed through many ancient records and even personally asked the Medicine Sovereign. He knew that if he wanted to strengthen his constellation, it would be best if he could fuse as many true intents as possible before evolving his constellation. Using a single true intent to form a constellation was the easiest, but it was also the simplest. Only using a single true intent to fuse with an astral soul to form a constellation. Under such circumstances, those who could still form a powerful constellation were as rare as phoenix feathers and Qilin horns. The stronger one was, the more resolute their mental fortitude would be. Although after breaking through to celestial phenomenon ascendant, they could still borrow the power of other astral souls to form another constellation, that would already be considered inferior. Qin Wendian wouldn't allow himself to be weaker than others in any aspect. Will there be a chance of failure? Mo Qingqing asked. There was always a chance of failure when breaking through to celestial phenomenon. And once one failed, the consequences would be extremely severe. Hence, many people were extremely cautious when trying to break through to celestial phenomenon. I don't think so. I can faintly sense that I've already gained a hint of comprehension. Breaking through to celestial phenomenon should be a matter of time, and it wouldn't take too long. Qin Wendian smiled as he replied, his tone filled with confidence. That sort of comprehension wouldn't lie. Right. Mo Qingqing nodded. The two of them held hands as they returned to the Mo residence. Mo Qingqing directly summoned the experts from the Medicine Sovereign Valley, telling them to guard the place where Qin Wendian was in closed-door seclusion. No one was to disturb him, regardless of who it was. Seeing how cautious Mo Qingqing was, everyone felt somewhat puzzled. After that, they faintly guessed at a possibility as their hearts trembled. In truth, Qin Wendian initially didn't want to break through immediately. Although he was confident, there might be unexpected occurrences. However, this sort of comprehension was something that happened in an instant. One could say that this was the best time for him to break through. If he missed it, it would be extremely difficult for him to return to this state again. Hence, Qin Wendian didn't hesitate and stepped into the cultivation grounds of the Mo residence, starting his breakthrough. Chapter 684. In the cultivation ground in the backyard of the Mo residence, Qin Wendian sat cross-legged. Around him, Yuan meteor stones could be seen piling up like mountains, exuding a powerful astral energy. These Yuan meteor stones surrounded Qin Wendian within. At this moment, Qin Wendian released his Great Dream Astral Soul and Great Dream Astral Nova. Astral souls were the foundation of celestial phenomenon, while celestial constellations were an extension of astral souls. Any constellation could only be condensed from the astral souls of stellar martial cultivators. Heavenly Dipper sovereigns had 4 astral souls, and after stepping into celestial phenomenon, they could condense a 5th astral soul. This meant that celestial phenomenon ascendants could at most condense a total of 5 constellations. The 5 constellations were all different, formed from 5 different types of astral souls. Some were strong, some were weak, it all depended on the comprehension abilities of stellar martial cultivators. Although this was the case in theory, many stellar martial cultivators only condensed 1 or 2 types of constellations. The reasons for this were all different, some were limited by their own talent. For example, there were many celestial phenomenon ascendants in Grand Xia. There were also some who considered the speed of their cultivation. They would use their strongest astral soul to condense their constellation, and after stepping into celestial phenomenon, they would be able to condense their 5th astral soul. This astral soul would definitely be stronger than the one they condensed before. Hence, if they used their 5th astral soul to condense their 2nd constellation, it would naturally be even more powerful. Hence, they stopped here, no longer wasting time on condensing their 2nd constellation. There was a very large proportion of celestial phenomenon ascendants who condensed their second constellation. However, it was a waste of time. They felt that even if they continued to condense their first astral soul, they would still be unable to surpass the second constellation they condensed. Naturally, there were also some demon-level characters like Qin Wentian who condensed an extremely powerful astral soul every time they condensed their first astral soul. Not only that, they were proficient in fusing multiple types of true intents, and the constellations they condensed were all extremely powerful. Such existences would naturally be able to condense multiple types of constellations, allowing their strength to grow even more tyrannical. This was also the reason why the disparity between different celestial phenomenon ascendants was so great. And for Qin Wentian, he had the opportunity to condense multiple types of powerful constellations. The first astral soul he chose to form a constellation was none other than his Great Dream's astral soul. The Great Dream astral soul shimmered with a reddish-golden light as it soared upwards, enveloping the astral nova. The surrounding Yuan meteor stones were frenziedly absorbed into the Great Dream astral nova, causing the astral nova to rapidly solidify. The astral nova shone with a resplendent luster, as though it was expanding. If one wanted to become a celestial phenomenon, they had to shatter their astral novas and reconstruct their astral souls, infusing their true intents within to form a constellation. But once they failed, their astral novas would have already been shattered and it would be exceedingly difficult for them to form another constellation. Hence, breaking through to the celestial phenomenon realm was a matter of extreme caution. Once they failed, there was a possibility that they would be stuck at Heavenly Dipper, unable to step past that barrier forever. The might of Grand Dream was unleashed to the extreme, everything was like a dream. In this dreamscape, Qin Wentian himself was immersed in the astral light of the starry skies. He sat cross-legged, surrounded by countless constellations. It was as though there was a boundless amount of astral light cascading down on him, enriching his astral nova. If one wanted to break through to the celestial phenomenon realm, they had to first reach the peak of Heavenly Dipper. If not, before their astral nova matured to the maximum, they wouldn't be able to shatter it and fuse it with their astral souls. After Qin Wentian was injured this time around, the astral energy in his body was almost completely dried up. With the aid of Mo Qingqing's medicinal pills, as well as the recovery of his body, his cultivation base became even more stable. He was already extremely close to the peak of Heavenly Dipper, and this was why he decided to attempt to break through. Time slowly flowed by, Qin Wentian was still in a deep slumber. After a long time, Qin Wentian drew in a deep breath. A thunderous sound rang out, it was as though a constellation had shattered. That astral nova directly exploded as an incomparably resplendent circular ring of light shone resplendently in the starry space. Qin Wentian's astral soul frenziedly absorbed the energy from the explosion as it expanded unceasingly, permeating the starry space. Under the illumination of the constellations, the embryonic form of a constellation could be seen. Qin Wentian knew that the crucial moment had arrived. Numerous particles of true intent appeared in the starry skies. These particles shone with a different luster as they gradually transformed into a vortex, fusing together to form a terrifying destructive might. Gradually, this constellation seemed to contain the power of destruction everywhere. As long as Qin Wentian willed it, he would be able to unleash the might of destruction. Bzzz. Only to see Qin Wentian, who was sitting cross-legged in the starry skies, waving his hands. Instantly, a long scar of destruction manifested in the form of a sword. In this case, as long as he willed it, his constellation would be able to unleash the power of destruction. It shouldn't be like this. Qin Wentian silently mused. I should continue to evolve it. Dream, it's both real and illusory at the same time. Qin Wentian mused. The energy from the Yuan meteor stones frenziedly flowed into the starry skies, continuing the evolution. Below the starry skies, numerous independent dimensions of destruction appeared, each of them filled with that terrifying energy. Something's wrong. Qin Wentian still hadn't found the feeling of enlightenment he gained earlier. This wasn't the constellation he wanted. Those dimensions of destruction came into contact with each other, clashing against each other, transforming into different constellations. Using the great dream astral soul as the foundation to evolve my constellation, it should be omnipresent. Qin Wentian waved his hand again. In an instant, the starry space seemed to have disappeared. However, that destructive energy seemed to be everywhere. Qin Wentian, who had his eyes closed, had a smile on his face. This was the feeling he felt, this was the enlightenment he gained from this. Molding celestial constellation, condense. Energy gushed forth from Qin Wentian. Astral energy gushed forth in a frenzy, resembling a terrifying vortex that revolved around Qin Wentian, wanting to form his own constellation. Astral souls could be the same, but it was impossible for a constellation to be exactly the same. Even if one comprehended the same true intent, and used the same astral souls to manifest their constellations, because of the differences in their comprehensions, the constellations they manifested would be different as well. They could only be described as similar. Everyone had their own constellation that belonged to them. Qin Wentian finally opened his eyes. In the eastern horizon, a hint of white appeared, causing Qin Wentian to be stunned. The process of him deriving his constellation seemed to have happened in the blink of an eye. But looking at the sky, it was already a different day. Could it be that a few days have passed? As he thought of this, Qin Wentian's perception gushed out as he heaved a sigh of relief. There were many people in the Mo residence who were preparing for the wedding. Seems like today was only the second day, and just like what he had expected, breaking through to celestial phenomenon was a smooth sailing. Celestial phenomenon? There doesn't seem to be any difference, and it isn't that difficult either. Qin Wentian smiled. Although he didn't feel anything special, the weakness he felt earlier seemed to have disappeared. Right now, his spirit, qi, and spirit were brimming with energy, even more so compared to when he was at his peak. It was as though his body contained boundless energy. Such a feeling was too marvelous. Not only so, one of his Yuanfu had changed as well. Within that Yuanfu, there seemed to be a space of its own, no longer a simple pool. Within that Yuanfu, there seemed to be a stretch of starry skies that contained boundless and vigorous astral energy. It was many times stronger compared to before. As to why Qin Wentian felt that breaking through was so easy, it was because before he broke through, he already had a direction in mind. In addition, regardless of his cultivation base or his comprehension of the true intent of his mandate, both had already reached the pinnacle. Hence, to others, the celestial phenomenon realm might be a tribulation that was exceedingly difficult to break through. But to Qin Wentian, when the conditions were right, success would follow naturally. Next, I should be able to condense my fifth constellation and condense my fifth astral soul, forming my fifth Yuanfu. Qin Wentian smiled. He only had a single Yuanfu transformed, and that was the one that corresponded to his great dream's astral soul. The other Yuanfu were still the same as before. It was as though he was born to condense multiple constellations, allowing each of his Yuanfu to transform. It's just that I was too focused on breaking through to celestial phenomenon that I didn't even consider what astral soul I should choose for my fifth astral soul. Qin Wentian murmured. Not only that, when Di Tian broke through in the future, he could choose a different fifth astral soul. They could walk on different paths of cultivation. Qin Wentian didn't wish for Di Tian to be the same as him. He hoped that Di Tian would be able to walk on a different path. Michem. At this moment, Qin Wentian seemed to have realized something as he laughed involuntarily. So it turned out that the mountain of Yuan meteor stones he prepared for breaking through to celestial phenomenon had all been used up. Upon thinking of this, Qin Wentian wiped the sweat off his forehead. Was it just right? How dangerous, why was the consumption rate so terrifying? He had read through the ancient records and knew how many Yuan meteor stones were required to break through to celestial phenomenon. In fact, he had prepared several times the amount in order to prevent any unexpected changes. Yet, he didn't expect that he would still use up all his Yuan meteor stones. The consumption rate was simply too terrifying. Most probably, even those at the peak of Heavenly Dipper wouldn't be able to afford such a price. Standing up, Qin Wentian walked out. Those from the Medicine Sovereign Valley were all standing guard outside. Upon seeing Qin Wentian's appearance, their gazes instantly landed on Qin Wentian, as though they were contemplating him. Right now, Qin Wentian looked extremely ordinary. A faint smile could be seen on his handsome face, and there wasn't the slightest bit of aura leaking out from him. This caused them to feel a sense of unfathomability. Did he break through or not? The commotion caused yesterday was truly too great. Many thanks to everyone. Qin Wentian smiled gently to everyone. Everyone smiled and nodded in acknowledgement. Today is the wedding day of the Holy Maiden and young Master Wentian. Let us first offer our congratulations. The maidens from the Medicine Sovereign Valley smiled at Qin Wentian. This immortal couple that even the entire royal sacred region was envious of, was finally going to be husband and wife. Many thanks, I'll go look for Qingqing now. Qin Wentian smiled. His silhouette flickered as he appeared outside Mo Qingqing's room. Mo Qingqing didn't rest at all, she was sitting in the courtyard. When Qin Wentian appeared, her gaze landed on him as a smile of happiness appeared on her face. This day had finally arrived. You don't want to put on makeup? Qin Wentian smiled as he asked. I don't like it. Mo Qingqing gently replied. Qin Wentian nodded his head, that's fine as well. You no longer need any embellishments. The truest you is also the most beautiful you. Mo Qingqing walked to the side of Qin Wentian and held his hand. After which, she stared at the rising sun and pointed to it as she shouted, from today onwards, I want to hold your hand as we watch the sunrise and sunset together. I will never let you go in this lifetime. Warmth flowed through Qin Wentian's heart. He tightly held onto Mo Qingqing's hand as he smiled, you stole my line, in that case, I'll treat it as you've said it before. Qin Wentian, you are not allowed to shake my hand away, okay? Mo Qingqing shouted loudly towards the sun. At this moment, she was no longer as cold as ice, no longer as pure and holy as a celestial maiden. She was just a pure and innocent young girl chasing after her love. Chapter 685. Today in the royal capital of Chu, there was bound to be no peace. Many people didn't sleep the entire night, waiting for the arrival of the wedding. When the sun rose, the area outside the Emperor's Star Academy was already filled with people. In an instant, it was as though the entire Chu country had come to the Emperor's Star Academy to spectate the wedding. This Chu Academy, which had a history of thousands of years, was the embodiment of the dreams of countless people. Today, because of a wedding, it had ushered in a different kind of glory. Bright red carpets covered the entire Emperor's Star Academy, and flowers of various colors decorated the entire academy, giving it a different flavor. These were all done spontaneously by the students of the Emperor's Star Academy. They placed flowers all over the Emperor's Star Academy, sending their sincerest blessings to their seniors. As Qin Wentian's name resounded throughout the world, there was naturally no one in the Emperor's Star Academy who didn't know of him. If it wasn't for this senior apprentice brother, the Emperor's Star Academy wouldn't have the glory it had today. Qin Wentian had even surpassed the founder of the Emperor's Star Academy, becoming a symbol of the Emperor's Star Academy, a living totem. Even many years ago, when the people of the Emperor's Star Academy mentioned Qin Wentian, they would still speak of him with pride. He was a young man who had once walked out of the academy, leading the Chu country to topple Grand Xia, becoming one of the most dazzling characters in the history of Grand Xia. Now, the place where Qin Wentian stayed in the Emperor's Star Academy had already become the symbol of the Emperor's Star Academy. At this moment, within the academy, the young boys and girls were filled with longing, as expressions of hope could be seen in their eyes. Some of them couldn't wait to see the legendary senior apprentice brother of theirs. In the hearts of every youth, they all had the dream of becoming a hero. They also hoped that one day, they would be able to achieve such glory, becoming the center of attention of tens of thousands of people, marrying the goddess of their hearts, just like Qin Wentian. Every young girl hoped to have a romantic wedding, where the man they loved would be a hero, marrying them in a grand fashion. Senior brother Wentian and senior sister Qingcheng, their wedding is too perfect. If I could have such a moment, I would have no regrets in this life. A young girl murmured, as a look of blessings appeared on her face. Stop dreaming. To us, the emperor of the Green Cloud Imperial Empire was an unreachable character, yet he was slain by a single sword strike from senior brother Wentian. The Green Cloud sovereign was a lofty existence, yet he didn't even have the courage to fight against senior brother Wentian. He could only hire an expert to assassinate him. As for those transcendent powers of Grand Xia, they are all legendary existences. They actually came to Chu together just to deal with senior brother Wentian. However, senior brother Wentian stood in the air and domineeringly slayed two of the transcendent powers, scaring everyone away. The young girl beside him had a look of respect on her face as she teased, not to mention, with your looks, how can you be compared to senior sister Qingcheng? She's a beauty that only appears once every 10,000 years in our Chu country. Even I'm slightly inferior, narcissist, go to hell. A scolding voice drifted over, as the laughter of the young girl resounded throughout every corner of the academy. On the stage of the Emperor's Star Academy, there were many elders seated there. The headmaster of the academy, Dai, Qin Wentian's teacher, Mustang, the Emperor of Chu, Chu Wuwei, Qin Chuan and his wife, old Mo of the Mo clan, Mo Qingqing's parents, Mo Qingqing's maternal grandfather, old Gu. All of them were the elders of Qin Wentian and Mo Qingqing. At this moment, on their faces, smiles could be seen. Happiness, gratification, they were truly happy for the newlyweds. Back then when I first saw that little fellow, I already knew that he would have a bright future ahead of him. But who would have thought that he would have such a bright future? Old Gu laughed. After which, he glanced at his disciple, Mustang, as he stated, "Brat, you have good judgment. No wonder you are my disciple. Master has taught me well." Mustang smiled as he replied. Old Gu nodded his head in satisfaction. Dai, who was at the side, glanced at old Gu as he stated, "Don't be so cocky. Don't try to take advantage of your seniority in front of Mustang. He is the true master of Qin Wentian." "Headmaster, but I'm also the true ancestor of Qin Wentian. Not only that, I'm also Qingqing's maternal grandfather." Old Gu's beard fluttered in the wind as he seriously stated, causing the people around him to burst out laughing. Fine, your seniority is higher." Dai was also amused by old Gu. He shook his head with a smile, but when he thought about it, it felt like a dream. Back then, when Qin Wentian inherited the legacy of the Azure Emperor, he had high hopes for Qin Wentian. But who would have thought that in just a short span of 10 years, Qin Wentian would have such achievements today? Not only that, he had already reached a height that the Azure Emperor couldn't reach back then, and was about to complete the long-cherished wish of the Azure Emperor. Why aren't the two little fellows here yet? Everyone is impatiently waiting to see them. Old Mo was also very happy today. He had already forgotten all the unhappiness in the past. Just take it that he was muddle-headed back then. They're here. Seems like the groom can't wait any longer. The gazes of the crowd turned over, only to see a group of silhouettes flying over from afar. On the left and right, Fairy Qingmei, Old Xing and a few other experts were standing guard. Qin Wentian was in the middle, and beside him, Ouyang Guangsheng, Fatty Fanlu, Chu Mang, Qin Zheng, Mu Feng, Lin Shuai, Ji Feishue, and the others were all present. Their handsome faces caused the screams of the girls in the Emperor's Star Academy. Everyone around Qin Wentian was an unrivaled character in the entire Chu country. Not only that, all of them exuded such an aura. Especially that Lin Shuai, he was so handsome. I've never seen him before, but it seems like he's someone from the same sect as Qin Wentian and is even a senior apprentice brother. Qin Wentian's silhouette arrived at the ceremonial stage. Fairy Qingmei and the rest automatically stood at the four corners of the stage. Today, they were willing to take on the role of protectors. Although they could be considered elders of Qin Wentian, they were still Qin Wentian's subordinates in name. They didn't want to overstep the boundaries of etiquette, they only wanted to be the witnesses of a legendary event. Wentian, I'm already waiting anxiously for the bride. Old Gu laughed as he teased. Today, Qin Wentian was clad in a scholarly white robe. It was simple, clean, and didn't have too many adornments on it. Coupled with his handsome countenance, he was like a scholar, filled with vigor. His pair of black eyes seemed to contain a boundless brilliance, capable of causing young girls to be mesmerized. Arg! I want to marry senior brother Qin too. A shrill voice rang out, causing the entire space to fall silent. The gazes of the crowd turned to the source of the voice, only to see a young girl about 17 to 18 years of age standing in the middle of the crowd. Her hands were cupping her face as she stared at Qin Wentian with a love-struck look on her face. That young girl was currently immersed in her own world when she suddenly felt the world turning silent. A strange expression involuntarily appeared on her face, and when she discovered that countless gazes were on her, her face instantly turned red. She screamed and covered her face with her hands, wanting nothing more than to find a hole to bury herself in. After which, the entire academy erupted into laughter. Su Ning, you are going to be famous soon. Ha ha ha. A female voice drifted out, as though she was intentionally playing a prank by saying the name of the young girl. Yet another wave of laughter rang out. Su Ning, this young girl was really going to be famous, at least in the Emperor's Star Academy. But at this moment, the entire space turned silent once more. The gazes of the crowd shifted in a different direction, only to see a group of maidens walking over. The person in the middle was none other than the bride, Mo Qingqing. Today, although Mo Qingqing didn't put on makeup, she was still clad in a red gown, accentuating her flawless countenance. She was like a fresh flower blooming in the most beautiful season. Her resplendent eyes, swan-like neck, snow-white skin, breathtaking curves, and flawless countenance. The Mo Qingqing today was as though she had stunned the entire world. At this moment, regardless of male or female, no one was able to shift their gazes away. Their eyes were filled with pure admiration, admiring the blissful smile on the bride's face as she stared at the young man on the ceremonial stage. She gracefully walked towards him step by step. Who? Only when Mo Qingqing landed on the ceremonial stage did the crowd draw in a deep breath. As they regained their senses, they stared at the maidens beside Mo Qingqing. The voluptuous Luo Huan, the ice-cold Yun Mengyi, the cold and elegant Lu Bingyu, the elegant Jiang Ting, the pure and innocent Bai Lu Yi, the slender and elegant Qin Yao, and the fairy-like Xian Xian. Every single one of them, even if they appeared alone, would be incomparably stunning. At this moment, all of them were standing beside Mo Qingqing, as though they were willing to be the supporting leaves. Too beautiful, I've never thought that I would be able to see such a lineup. The hearts of countless males felt an intense stimulation. As long as they could marry any of the maidens on the stage, they were willing to give up everything. This is truly, many people were speechless, not knowing what to say. Below the ceremonial stage, there were also many of Qin Wentian's kin and friends, as well as those from the Qin residence and Mo residence. Immortal Drunken Wine, Muro, Bai Qingsong, Autumn Snow and the rest. At this moment, the expressions on their faces were all filled with sincerity. The rims of Mu Ro's eyes were slightly red. She did not know what she was feeling. She was moved, but she also felt an indescribable sadness. She also wanted to become the most dazzling bride, but she was destined to only be able to watch from below, to witness his glory. The only thing she could do was to silently send her blessings in her heart. Gong Hong and Qian Mengyu also came. They came here together with those from the Green Cloud Pavilion. Naturally, the Green Cloud Pavilion wasn't willing to disband, they were willing to submit. Gong Hong laughed as he stared at this immortal couple, while Qian Mengyu had a complicated look in her eyes. Little last Qing, your Wendian Gige is getting married today. If you could see it, you would definitely be very happy, right? How are you now? Bai Qingsong murmured, he still missed Bai Qing. He still remembered back then when Bai Qing fell out with him because of Qin Wentian and Bai Qing's relationship was so good. If you were here, you would also stand beside Mo Qingcheng, watching over your Wentian Gij, right? Bai Qingsong laughed, while Autumn Snow, who was beside him, had tears streaming down her cheeks. If Bai Qing was here, would she be standing beside Mo Qingcheng? If she hadn't done all those things back then, would the position Mo Qingcheng was in now be hers? Don't cry, lass, today is a happy day. Bai Qingsong silently gave his blessings as he stared at the newlyweds. Autumn Snow wiped away her tears as she heavily nodded her head. Chapter 686. Qin Wentian and Mo Qingcheng stood on the ceremonial stage, facing each other. Radiant smiles could be seen in their eyes as they held hands, facing the people of the world. Wentian, shall we begin? Qin Chuan, who was seated on the main seat, asked. Let's wait a little longer. Qin Wentian smiled. There were still many people who hadn't arrived yet. And indeed, at this moment, several silhouettes soared through the air as they flew over. Rows of silhouettes could be seen. There were actually more than 10 groups of people, and all of them seemed to be from different powers. They soared through the air, exuding an extremely powerful aura. But even so, when they arrived at the red carpet, they still descended from the air and shouted. The Venerate Heavens sect of Ginkgo of Grand Xia is here to offer our congratulations. The Shi clan of Ginkgo of Grand Xia is here to offer our congratulations. The Hua clan of Grand Xia is here to offer our congratulations. The Sword Extinction sect of Grand Xia is here to offer our congratulations. The Grand Xia Empire. Voices rang out unceasingly, reverberating through the air, shaking the entire Emperor Star Academy and even causing the entire royal capital of Chu to tremble. The transcendent powers of Grand Xia had arrived. Only to see several silhouettes walking along the red carpet, arriving at a location not far away from the ceremonial stage. Their gazes were fixed on the figure on the ceremonial stage. It was none other than that handsome young man, Qin Wentian, who hadn't even reached the age of 30 this year. He had already suppressed the transcendent powers of Grand Xia to the point where they couldn't even stand a foothold in Grand Xia unless they submitted. Qin Wentian stood on the ceremonial stage, sweeping his gaze over to the crowd. He then took a step forward and smiled. Wentian is extremely gratified that all the seniors of Grand Xia are willing to come. Everyone coldly laughed in their hearts, but they wouldn't reveal their thoughts. Old man Tianji laughed as he stared at Qin Wentian. Back then, he had already foreseen the rise of the demonic star, causing the skies of Grand Xia to change. After that, on the battle platform of the Heavenly Fate rankings, he guessed that the demonic star was none other than Qin Wentian. Not too long later, everything came true. Most probably, no one would be able to obstruct the unification of Grand Xia. Since sect leader Qin has invited us, we naturally came. It's just that back then when we heard sect leader Qin wanted to announce how to deal with us during the wedding ceremony, we didn't dare to agree. Although we don't have sect leader Qin's talent, we are still the leaders of our respective clans and sects in Grand Xia. It's impossible for us to live under someone else's roof. If sect leader Qin has something to say, you better make it clear today. The countenance of the Shi clan's ancestor sharpened. The number of people who came this time around was even more compared to the time when they tried to assassinate Qin Wentian. Other than those powers who were willing to follow Qin Wentian, the ascendants of the other transcendent powers were all here. Qin Wentian had already sent out invitations to all the transcendent powers. This meant that no one would be able to escape this calamity. Qin Wentian's meaning was very simple. Follow the flow of events, no one would be able to escape unscathed. Qin Wentian stared at the Shi clan's ancestor as his countenance gradually turned sharp. He swept his gaze over to the other transcendent powers only to see that they were all staring at him with confidence in their eyes. This caused a playful expression to appear on Qin Wentian's face. Seems like the transcendent powers of Grand Xia haven't given up all hope yet. Obey the heavens' will. From now onwards, the Azure Emperor Palace shall control Grand Xia, becoming the Emperor of Grand Xia. All the other powers shall submit to us. Qin Wentian's words were cold, his voice sweeping through the heavens and earth. When those ascendants stared at Qin Wentian's eyes, their hearts trembled. They could faintly sense that Qin Wentian was even more terrifying than before. Those eyes of his seemed to be able to pierce through their hearts, causing fear to rise in their hearts. Qin Wentian, are you sure you want to do this? The Wang ancestor coldly spoke. Their Wang clan was unrivaled under the heavens in the war continent, there were no other powers that could contend against them. How could they endure being a subject of the Azure Emperor Palace? From now on, the Azure Emperor Palace of Grand Xia would confer him the title of king, and they would become his subjects. The hearts of those from the Emperor's Star Academy trembled. Although they had heard many rumors, it was a completely different matter to personally witness Qin Wentian's might. Even when facing the hegemons of Grand Xia, he was still so domineering. Today, all of you should be here, right? Qin Wentian said coldly. The countenances of the ascendants froze, they didn't know what Qin Wentian meant by this. Back then, I have yet to settle the debt of you assassinating me. I wish to unify Grand Xia, but I don't wish to weaken the strength of the Grand Xia Empire. But since all of you insist on going about things the wrong way, I will give you two choices. Do you want us to handle the matters of Grand Xia ourselves, or do you want the experts of the royal sacred region to interfere? Qin Wentian stared at the ascendants as he continued, if you all want to handle it yourselves, I won't borrow the experts of the royal sacred region to settle this. But if you all want to borrow external help, I don't mind either. Tell me, which choice do you all want? Michem. The ascendants furrowed their brows. Wasn't Qin Wentian heavily injured? Why was he still so confident? The ascendants involuntarily retreated a few steps, they could only watch as Qin Wentian walked towards the Wang ancestor. There were so many ascendants in the surroundings, yet no one dared to act against Qin Wentian. Are you not willing? Qin Wentian stood above the Wang ancestor, his countenance incomparably cold. Yes, we are all not willing. The Wang ancestor stared at Qin Wentian. The other ascendants also walked towards him. This time around, it was as though they wanted to advance and retreat together. Very well. Qin Wentian's voice was ice cold. An eye appeared in the center of his brows. With just a single glance, the Wang ancestor felt as though he had entered a dream. In this place, he was the only one facing Qin Wentian, there was no one else. This isn't the first time you provoked me. Earlier, you used my clan members to threaten me and I have yet to settle the score with you. Now, you want to stick your neck out? Since this is the case, I shall grant you your wish today. Qin Wentian's voice rang out in the ears of the Wang ancestor. After which, a terrifying destructive might gushed towards him. The Wang ancestor stabbed his finger towards the center of his brows, wanting to break free from the dreamscape. However, he discovered that even with his will, he had no way to break free. You broke through. The countenance of the Wang ancestor turned pale. Qin Wentian activated the dreamscape and he couldn't break free. This meant that Qin Wentian's dream will had already surpassed the strength of his will, causing him to be unable to break free. Yes. Qin Wentian admitted. The countenance of the Wang ancestor turned ashen. The Wang clan of the war continent is finished. Qin Wentian waved his palms. This palm imprint was incomparably resplendent, blotting out the sun. It was akin to a constellation descending upon the Wang ancestor, as a storm of destruction ravaged the area. There was simply no way for the Wang ancestor to evade. This caused the Wang ancestor to despair. After his breakthrough, Qin Wentian had no way to defend against it. Bang! The Wang ancestor didn't even have the chance to resist. He was directly slain by Qin Wentian, turning into ashes, not even leaving a trace behind. The entire Emperor Star Academy was silent. They all stared at this strange scene. The Wang ancestor didn't even have the chance to resist. They only saw Qin Wentian killing the Wang ancestor with a single palm strike. That palm strike seemed to contain some sort of magical power. The countenances of the various ascendants paled. They were all silently musing in their hearts, why hasn't Qin Wentian appeared yet? Is there anyone else who is unconvinced? Qin Wentian stared down at the crowd, his voice as domineering as ever. At this moment, Qin Wentian abruptly inclined his head, staring at the horizons. Qin Wentian, aren't you too arrogant? An arrogant voice drifted over. Qin Wentian's lips curled up in an incomparably cold smile, akin to the edge of a blade. Finally, he appeared. He had been waiting for this moment for a long time. There weren't many people who paid attention to the situation in Grand Xia, but Junyu was one of them. The news of the Pill Emperor Hall being destroyed couldn't be hidden from him. Today, he came here. Naturally, he wasn't alone. Beside Junyu, there were many experts. When they stared at Qin Wentian, their gazes were filled with flames of anger, as well as extreme coldness. You came. Qin Wentian stared at Junyu, he wasn't surprised at all. This morning, he had already received the news from the Medicine Sovereign, and this news was extremely fascinating. Back then in the Royal Sacred Sect, the Sacred Emperor had told them to settle this themselves. What status did the Sacred Emperor have? It was impossible for him to go back on his words. Xia Sheng's death was due to his incompetence, why would he care about the life and death of a mere disciple of the Royal Sacred Sect? But even if the Sacred Emperor didn't care, it didn't mean that as the hegemonic powers of the Royal Sacred Sect, they wouldn't care about being smacked in the face by Qin Wentian. Not only that, after Qin Wentian left, there was a female who threatened the Royal Sacred Sect. There had to be an explanation for this matter. Qin Wentian, let me tell you a piece of news. The Medicine Sovereign won't be able to attend your wedding today. Junyu stared at Qin Wentian. I know. Qin Wentian's countenance was extremely calm. The Medicine Sovereign had already stated clearly that there were experts from the Royal Sacred Sect stationed outside the Medicine Sovereign Valley. They didn't want to do anything, nor did they want to give the Medicine Sovereign an excuse to act. They only had a single goal, and that was to prevent the Medicine Sovereign from leaving the Medicine Sovereign Valley. Michem. Junyu furrowed his brows. Did Qin Wentian know about this? Did the Medicine Sovereign inform him? But why did he still dare to be so confident? This time around, their lineup was extremely powerful, even the human Emperor of Yi, Yi Qingyun, was included in their plans. Tap, tap, tap. At this moment, a crisp sound drifted over from the carpet. It seemed to be the sound of a walking stick. The crowd felt somewhat bewildered as they turned their gazes over, only to see a cripple walking over. Qin Wentian also turned his gaze in that direction. At the instant he saw that silhouette, his heart pounded violently, as though he had been struck by lightning. After which, his eyes turned bloodshot as he stared fixedly at the silhouette that had just arrived. Chapter 687. Qin Chuan also saw that silhouette. He abruptly stood up and stared at the newcomer, causing the people around him to have strange expressions on their faces. Who was this cripple exactly? To think that he could cause such a huge reaction from both Qin Wentian and Qin Chuan. Uncle Black. Beside Mo Qingcheng, Qin Yao mumbled in a low voice. Uncle Black was actually still alive. He even came to attend Qin Wentian's wedding. Seems like Uncle Black had always been concerned about Qin Wentian. Clack, clack, clack. The melodious sounds rang out as Uncle Black walked towards the ceremonial stage step by step. Fairy Qing Mei and the rest wanted to stop him, but when they turned their heads and glanced at Qin Wentian, and upon seeing the expression on Qin Wentian's face, they knew that they couldn't stop this cripple. Only to see that the cripple actually walked up the ceremonial stage. The people in this space all quietly watched him, and nobody tried to stop him. It was very strange, but the sound of his walking stick seemed to have some sort of magical power, causing people to involuntarily listen attentively. Uncle Black walked up the ceremonial stage, and walked in front of Qin Wentian. His calloused hands gently caressed Qin Wentian's face. That solemn face in Qin Wentian's memories finally revealed a warm smile of concern. Qin Wentian also smiled, his smile resembling that of a child, extremely radiant. This scene caused people to be even more bewildered. The relationship between this cripple and Qin Wentian seemed to be so intimate that it surpassed the imaginations of others. If not, there was no way he would act so intimately, and Qin Wentian was still smiling foolishly. You've grown up, and are becoming more and more like your father. Why are you still so childish? Uncle Black lightly caressed Qin Wentian's face. Staring at the handsome countenance in front of him, lines of wrinkles appeared on his smiling face. Qin Wentian's heart trembled. He had many words he wanted to say, but he didn't know where to start. It's so good to see your big day. Seeing the two of you is like seeing your parents. Uncle Black pulled on Qin Wentian's hand as they walked to the side of Mo Qingcheng. Staring at Mo Qingcheng, a look of satisfaction could be seen in Uncle Black's eyes as he smiled. Lass, not bad, you are a good match for each other. Mo Qingcheng had never met Uncle Black before, but from the interactions between him and Qin Wentian, she could tell that the relationship between the two of them was extremely intimate. Qingcheng, this is Uncle Black. He took care of me since I was young. Qin Wentian laughed. Only now did Mo Qingcheng understand the relationship between the two of them. She then bowed to Uncle Black. Qingcheng pays her respects to Uncle Black. Good, good. For your wedding, I don't have anything worthy to give you. It's just that in the past, Qin Wentian's mother prepared a gift for her future daughter-in-law. Today, I'll give it to you on behalf of Madam. Uncle Black smiled. After which, he put down his walking stick and stretched his hands out. Instantly, a gift box appeared in his hands. Just this gift box alone was already glowing with a brilliant light, indicating that it was extremely valuable. Open it, this gift was left for you by Mrs. Qin. I've been keeping it safe for her. You have to accept it no matter what. Uncle Black solemnly spoke. Mo Qingcheng nodded her head. She naturally knew that Qin Wentian was only an adopted son of the Qin clan. Uncle Black was the person who took care of Qin Wentian since he was young. In that case, it was only natural that Uncle Black was acquainted with Qin Wentian's biological parents. This gift was given to her by Qin Wentian's mother, how could she not accept it? Stretching out her hands, Mo Qingcheng solemnly opened the gift box. Instantly, a resplendent beam of light shot out, resplendent and resplendent. It was as though a multicolored radiance was being released from within, incomparably dazzling. Mo Qingcheng closed her eyes, and when she opened them, she saw an incomparably resplendent phoenix robe within. It was as though it was woven from the feathers of a phoenix, incomparably dazzling. How beautiful! Mo Qingcheng sighed in admiration as she stared at the phoenix robe. Qin Wentian felt so moved in his heart, his eyes turning red. He had even forgotten about the invading enemies. At this moment, in his eyes, there was only the gift his mother had prepared for Qingcheng. This was the first time in his 28 years of life that he truly felt the care and concern of his biological mother. It was as though no matter where she was, she would always be concerned about him. Qingcheng, try it on. Qin Wentian smiled as he looked at Mo Qingcheng. Mo Qingcheng nodded her head, as she took the phoenix robe and wore it. The instant the phoenix robe landed on Mo Qingcheng's body, a resplendent glow permeated the air. There was no wind, but the phoenix robe fluttered by itself. The resplendent glow enveloped Mo Qingcheng, and at this moment, it was as though there was a formless energy supporting Mo Qingcheng's body, as a powerful will flowed into her mind. Mo Qingcheng closed her eyes, as the phoenix robe fluttered in the wind. At this moment, she was even more beautiful than before, inviolable. How beautiful! Many in the crowd exclaimed in their hearts. Mo Qingcheng's countenance and the phoenix robe were a perfect match. An instant later, Mo Qingcheng opened her eyes, as a strange glow flickered within. After which, she murmured in a low voice, "Mother, thank you." As the sound of her voice faded, the phoenix robe transformed into a blur. Every inch of the robe was tightly fitted to Mo Qingcheng's body, as though it was specially made for her. With an intention of her will, a pair of resplendent phoenix wings appeared on the robe, flapping gently in the air. At this instant, Mo Qingqing was like a descendant of the ancient phoenix, like a noble princess. This caused a thought to appear in the minds of the crowd. Could it be that this phoenix robe was truly made from the feathers of a phoenix? This was impossible, right? Mo Qingqing's body landed on the ceremonial platform, and the wings closed as she directly vanished from sight. She stared at Qin Wentian, as the smile in her eyes never faded. Wentian, I like mother's gift very much. Qin Wentian was also very happy in his heart. He stared at Uncle Black, only to see Uncle Black speaking to him, your father only left you a single sentence. A good man, no matter how ordinary or not, should have an indomitable spirit and have a clear conscience. Your child understands. A smile appeared on Qin Wentian's face. He had seen his parents before in his memories, and he knew where the name, Wentian, came from. Have you guys spoken enough? At this moment, Jun Yu's voice drifted over, interrupting Qin Wentian and the others. A cripple was actually trying to act mysterious here. Uncle Black's gaze turned over, only to see several figures walking out from the crowd. These people didn't reveal their true features, and all of them wore masks. It was unknown who they were. Those from the royal sacred sect are simply too impudent. A voice rang out in the air as a group of figures descended from the skies. The person in the center was clad in luxurious robes, with a crown on his head. This person was none other than the human emperor of an ancient country, Yi Qingyun. Foster father, you're here. Qin Wentian called out as he stared at the figure in the air. Wentian, I've long discovered the existence of these people. Hence, I didn't show myself. However, I'm sure the medicine sovereign has already made arrangements. Yi Qingyun spoke as he arrived on the ceremonial stage. Ha, little Yi, you even know about this? A voice drifted over. After which, a bright light flashed as two silhouettes directly appeared on the ceremonial stage. It was none other than the medicine sovereign and that old man who killed an elder of the royal sacred region. The gazes of Jun Yu and the experts from the royal sacred sect froze as they stared at the medicine sovereign, as though they had just seen something unbelievable. Medicine sovereign, you actually came here? An expert from the royal sacred sect stared at the medicine sovereign as he spoke. The medicine sovereign coldly glanced at those from the royal sacred sect as killing intent flashed in his eyes. Seems like I've given you guys too much face, to think that you actually dared to surround my medicine sovereign valley. Medicine sovereign, what do you want? An expert from the royal sacred sect coldly spoke. What do I want? A cold light flickered in the eyes of the medicine sovereign. He turned his gaze onto Uncle Black, only to see Uncle Black sweeping a glance at those people before he transmitted his voice to Qin Wentian. From the day you were born, other than me, this trash, bringing you into the sect, us old fellows have never done anything for you. This is the orders of your parents, a man should always be strong. All the hardships and setbacks you have experienced, they will all be precious treasures for you in the future. If there comes a day when you can become an immortal, we will naturally tell you everything because you already have the qualifications to become a supreme expert. What you have now is still insufficient. But today is your wedding. Even if your parents blame us, we will still act for you. Uncle Black's voice rang out in Qin Wentian's mind. After which, he turned his gaze onto those masked figures as he spoke, kill them all without mercy. As the sound of his voice faded, a terrifying light engulfed the heavens and earth. Instantly, the sky changed color as the wind and clouds howled. The countenances of those experts from the royal sacred sect were all incredibly unsightly to behold. At the same time, they released their constellations as resplendent beams of light illuminated the entire space. And at this moment, among those masked figures, a silhouette stepped out. With a wave of his hand, a spatial constellation manifested, enveloping the entire space as a terrifying spatial tempest frenziedly manifested. Walala! That tempest ravaged the surroundings, the experts from the Emperor's Star Academy couldn't even stand stably. When they felt the terrifying chi flow, their hearts pounded madly. They didn't even dare to imagine how powerful such an expert was. Bzzz. The raging wind ravaged the space as the spatial tempest transformed into a black hole, drifting away from the crowd, as though intentionally not wanting to destroy the wedding venue. In the blink of an eye, the spatial tempest had already soared to the skies. But even on the ground, one could still feel the destructive chi flow from it. However, in just a short instant, the spatial tempest gradually dissipated. When everything vanished like smoke, the crowd discovered to their shock that there was no one within the spatial tempest. Is he dead? The hearts of the crowd pounded violently. This spatial tempest was caused by those from Qin Wentian's side. In that case, those on his side naturally could leave safely. But as for Jun Yu and the others? When they thought of the words "kill them all without mercy," the crowd couldn't help but feel a chill in their hearts. Turning their gazes towards those masked figures, they suddenly discovered that all of them had vanished, as though they had never appeared before. Maybe, they were mixed in with the crowd from the Emperor's Star Academy, silently observing this wedding. They were so low profile that if it wasn't for someone causing trouble, they wouldn't even show themselves. Those ascendants of Grand Xia involuntarily trembled. Those existences were all experts from the Royal Sacred Sect, experts that governed the entire Royal Sacred region. Yet they were all killed without mercy. In that case, what did they count for? The ascendants of Grand Xia. In front of them, they were nothing more than ant-like existences, yet they still dared to cause trouble here? You're tuning in to the Blissful Bookshelf YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.